Chapter 51. Beat Lu Feng. The scene suddenly became incomparably quiet. Regardless of whether it was Han Shui, Han Yu, or Lu Feng's men, all of their gazes were focused on Lu Feng, who was constantly retreating. However, when these people clearly saw that the beast that was flying towards Lu Feng was actually an extremely large-scaled tiger, all of them simultaneously sucked in a breath of cold air. Bang! Retreating a dozen steps, Lu Feng's Yuan power swirled around in his body. Powerful Yuan power condensed in his fists. At the same time, his fists were like a pile driver as he punched the scaled tiger's body dozens of times. The force generated from the collisions created a hurricane. It wasn't until the last punch that the scaled tiger's body finally came to a stop. With a plop, the scaled tiger's huge body landed in front of Lu Feng. Lu Feng let out a sigh of relief. His face was filled with shock. When he first came into contact with the scaled tiger beast's body, he knew that it was already a corpse. He knew that this scaled tiger beast's body had been thrown out by someone with brute force. Feeling the numbness in his hands, Lu Feng knew that the person who threw out the scaled tiger beast's corpse was extremely powerful. Thinking of this, Lu Feng's gaze immediately focused on the cave where the scaled tiger beast's corpse had been thrown out. His eyes narrowed solemnly. The strange state of the scaled tiger beast was also discovered by the crowd. When they discovered that the scaled tiger beast was actually a corpse that had died not long ago, everyone was shocked. They knew that the scaled tiger beast was a genuine level 1 meta beast. It was very difficult to kill a level 1 meta beast without the cultivation of the Void realm. Everyone followed Lu Feng's line of sight and focused their attention on the entrance of the cave. They knew that the owner of the scaled tiger beast was inside the cave. Dong dong dong. Soft footsteps were heard and a skinny figure slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. When the crowd realized that this figure was actually a 15-year-old youth, they couldn't help but be stunned. At the same time, a frightening thought rose in their minds. Could it be that the person who killed the scaled tiger was this young man in front of them? The moment this young man appeared at the entrance of the cave, Han Shui and Han Yu, who were lying on the ground, looked hopeful. Their beautiful eyes were filled with joy. Zhuowen, you have to be careful. These people are from the Maple Leaf Mercenary Group. They are here to snatch the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool, Han Shui suddenly said loudly. The person who appeared at the entrance of the cave was none other than Zhuowen, who had reaped a great harvest from the cave. When Zhuowen was about to come out of the cave, he had a rough idea of what had happened. Therefore, when Lu Feng was about to pull Han Shui and Han Yu away, Zhuowen threw the corpse of the scaled tiger at him without hesitation to stop him. Ignoring the gazes of the crowd, Zhuowen leaped and arrived in front of Han Shui and Han Yu. When he discovered that the two women were fine apart from the fact that they could not exert any strength, he felt a lot more relieved. Soul Change Realm. Following the appearance of Zhuowen, Lu Feng's gaze also focused on Zhuowen. When he discovered that Zhuowen's aura was only at the Soul Change Realm, his gaze became somewhat doubtful. He didn't believe that a Soul Change Realm martial artist could kill a level 1 meta beast like the scaled tiger beast. Taking a deep breath, Lu Feng cracked a smile and said to Zhuowen, "You are Zhuowen, right? You have quite the brute force. However, with your mere Soul Change Realm strength, it's not enough. If you want to be a hero and save the damsel in distress, you need to have that kind of strength. It's a pity that you don't have that kind of strength right now. If you don't care about this matter and hand over the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl you obtained from the cave, I swear in the name of the leader of the Maple Leaf Mercenary Group that I won't make things difficult for you." After Lu Feng said this, the 20+ mercenaries behind him looked at Zhuowen with ridicule. Although the appearance of the scaled tiger beast's corpse was very shocking, it was just as Lu Feng said. On the surface, Zhuowen's strength was only at the Soul Change Realm. No matter how heaven-defying this person was, it was impossible for him to have the ability to kill a level 1 meta beast like the scaled tiger beast. With a preconceived notion, many people thought that the scaled tiger beast was already dead. It was just that Zhuowen was lucky and happened to find the corpse. Maple Leaf Mercenary Group. Famous? Sorry, I've never heard of it. However, I have a special characteristic. I like to be a hero and save the damsel in distress. Zhuowen grinned as a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Lu Feng's face froze for a moment before his eyes darkened. He said coldly, "It seems like you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Don't blame me for not warning you when you die later." After he finished speaking, Lu Feng's legs bounced, and his entire body instantly turned into a ghostly figure that swept straight towards Zhuowen. He threw out a punch, and a powerful origin energy instantly gathered in his fist. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. Lu Feng's strength was at the pinnacle of the Nirvana realm. It was Zhuowen's first time encountering an opponent like this. Although he had personally killed a level 1 meta beast like the Scaled Tiger Beast, the Scaled Tiger Beast's strength was infinitely suppressed due to the dragon aura in Zhuowen's body. At most, its strength was equivalent to an initial Nirvana realm warrior. Therefore, Zhuowen did not hesitate at all. Zhuowen violently threw out a punch as countless blood veins suddenly burst out from his arms. The muscles on his arms also swelled because of the blood veins. This was the first sky of rampage of the violent blood beast body. At the same time, Zhuowen silently circulated the primeval dragon roar fist in his body. The strength in his arms instantly rose to the strength of 7 dragons. The powerful strength also tore the surrounding air apart and formed a powerful hurricane. Boom! The moment the two fists collided, powerful Yuan power suddenly exploded like a bomb. A huge light pillar appeared between the two of them, and the ground where the two of them were standing also cracked like a spider web. The powerful air wave set off a frenzied wind, causing the surrounding people to take a dozen steps back. When Lu Feng came into contact with Zhuowen's fist, his face instantly became incomparably pale. This was because he felt that his fist was like an indestructible steel plate that couldn't be shaken at all. Then, he felt a powerful force enter his body from his opponent's fist. With a muffled groan, Lu Feng immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, under everyone's gaze, he actually flew back like a stray dog. At this moment, the scene suddenly became incomparably silent. The members of the Maple Leaf mercenary group all stared blankly at Lu Feng, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. Then, when they turned around and saw that Zhuowen was actually standing on the ground like a boulder, their faces immediately revealed an expression as if they had seen a ghost. How is this possible? The leader's strength has already reached the pinnacle of the Nirvana scripture, and this kid's cultivation is only at the soul transformation realm. How could the leader lose in the end? When the 20 members of the Maple Leaf mercenary group saw Lu Feng's miserable defeat, they immediately revealed an expression of disbelief. Their gazes towards Zhuowen also became somewhat fearful. Ignoring the panic of these members, Zhuowen arrived in front of Lu Feng in a flash. His right hand lifted Lu Feng's collar, and his expression was calm as he said, "Lu Feng. To tell you the truth, I killed the Scaled Tiger with my own hands. Now that you've lost to me, do you think I have the strength to be a hero and save the beauty?" When Zhuowen's words came out, the members of the Maple Leaf mercenary group immediately went into an uproar. Even Han Shui and Han Yu's pupils couldn't help but shrink when they heard this. Although the two women had already guessed when they saw the Scaled Tiger's corpse, now that Zhuowen took the initiative to say it out loud, their hearts were fiercely pulled as they were extremely shocked. The 20-plus members of the Maple Leaf mercenary group once again glanced at Lu Feng, who was heavily injured by Zhuowen. They knew that what Zhuowen said was probably true, so many of them had thoughts of retreating in their hearts. "Sir, we were all acting under orders. In fact, the idea to deal with you all was Lu Feng's idea. It has nothing to do with us. We hope that Sir can be magnanimous and let us off." It was unknown who said this sentence among the 20 Maple Leaf mercenary group members, but it immediately received a response from many others. Following which, these people looked at Zhuowen with hopeful gazes. You all, when he saw that his subordinates had actually fled, Lu Feng's expression instantly became even more unsightly. The anger in his chest instantly turned into a fit of coughing, and his face instantly became even paler. Zhuowen smiled slightly, then looked at Lu Feng with a meaningful gaze and said indifferently, "I can spare you all, but you must join the Flowing Flame mercenary group. Also, capture Ah Chiu who betrayed the Flowing Flame mercenary group for me. If you don't agree, I believe that you will end up like that scaled tiger. At this point, the eerie coldness in Zhuowen's eyes immediately caused these people to feel a chill run down their spines. Following which, they hurriedly nodded and bowed as they agreed. At the same time, they swiftly tied Ah Chiu up and brought him before Han Shui. Han Shui. From now on, these people will be members of your mercenary group. As for that traitor, I'll leave him to you. Han Shui looked at Zhuowen with a strange gaze, then suddenly said, Zhuowen. Lu Feng's background is not small. Now that you've injured him, I'm afraid that you'll have a lot of trouble in the future. Brat! Han Shui is right. You better let me go. Otherwise, the Lu family of Luchuan Town will definitely not let you go. Also, our Lu family's young master is already on his way. When he arrives, you will have to bear the consequences. At the mention of the so-called Lu family's young master, Lu Feng's face instantly revealed a smug expression, as if the Lu family's young master was his savior. Luchuan Town's Lu family? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed as he muttered to himself. Zhuowen knew a little about the Lu family. Luchuan Town was not too far from Rotten Armor City. If Rotten Armor City was close to the Annihilation Forest, then Luchuan Town was basically an agglomeration of towns on the outskirts of the Annihilation Forest. Luchuan Town also had a nickname called the Town of Mercenaries. It was precisely because it was very close to the Annihilation Forest that many mercenaries who went in and out of the Annihilation Forest to hunt would temporarily settle down in Luchuan Town. Therefore, although Luchuan Town was located in a remote area, it was rare for it to be very prosperous. The Lu family was the most powerful force in Luchuan Town. Speaking of which, the Lu family's power was not much weaker than the three big families of Rotten Armor City. The only difference was that they had fewer top warriors than the three big families. Their overall strength was not weak. Just as Zhuowen was deep in thought, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang out in Zhuowen's mind. Chapter 52. Hostile visitors. Hearing this, Zhuowen's face suddenly became serious. He did not expect that there would be two warriors of the Yin Void realm following them. Looking at Lu Feng in his hand, Zhuowen knew that they were probably the young master of the Lu family that Lu Feng had mentioned. Whoosh! Just as Zhuowen was thinking about a good plan, two figures suddenly flew out of the dense forest. They seemed to have noticed Zhuowen's group. They were stunned at first and then stopped on the flat ground in front of the cave. There were two men, one old and one young. The young man was about 20 years old. He was dressed like a scholar, wearing a fluttering white robe and holding a folding fan in his hand. However, his face was sickly pale and his eyes were incongruously gloomy. Standing behind the white-robed man was an old man in sackcloth with turbid eyes. However, from the strong fluctuation of the old man's body, it was clear that he was not someone to be trifled with. Boy! The white-robed man's cultivation is about the same as Han Shui's. He has just reached the Yin Void realm, so he is not a threat. However, the old man behind the white-robed man is a little difficult to deal with. He has reached the first level of the Yin Void realm. With your strength, you are no match for him. Xiao Hei gloated in Zhou Bao's mind. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He glanced at the old man standing respectfully behind the white-robed man with fear. He did not expect the old man to be an expert of the first sky of the Yin Void realm. The Yin Void realm was divided into 9 levels. The power of the void armor condensed on the surface of each level of the Yin Void realm would constantly increase. A warrior of the first level of the Yin Void realm would condense a void armor in his body. He was much stronger than a warrior who had just reached the Yin Void realm and had not condensed a void armor. Obviously, the white-robed man also saw Lu Feng in Zhuowen's hand. His eyes suddenly flashed with coldness, but he still smiled. He cupped his hands toward Zhuowen and said, "My friend, I am Lu Yuan, the eldest son of the Lu family in Luchuan Town. The man in your hand is my subordinate. I hope you can let him go for the sake of our Lu family." Although Lu Yuan's words were very polite, there was an unquestionable tone in his voice. Zhuowen didn't like such a tone. When Lu Feng, who was being carried by Zhuowen, saw Lu Yuan, an excited expression appeared on his face. He hurriedly said, "Young master. You can't let him go. He has the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl in his hands. Moreover, when we captured Han Shui and her sister, he was the one who stirred up trouble. Young master, you can't let him go so easily." When Lu Yuan heard this, his gaze became even colder. The corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a sinister smile as he said, "It seems that you have come with ill intentions. But I'm in a good mood today, so I can give you a chance. Give me the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl and the two sisters, and break one of your arms. Then I'll let you go. What do you think? The Lu family of Luchuan Town? Hee, does your Lu clan have a lot of face? And who do you think you are? What right do you have to order me around?" Zhuowen sneered. "Kid, you've got guts. You're the first person who dares to talk back to me, but I think you'll be the last." Lu Yuan's expression suddenly became incomparably cold as he said coldly. Han Shui and Han Yu, who were standing a short distance away, involuntarily trembled when they saw Lu Yuan's expression gradually turn dark and cold. They had heard a little about Lu Yuan. Not only was he lecherous, but he also loved to torture women. Many women had lost their lives in his hands. Therefore, if they were to fall into Lu Yuan's hands, they would suffer a fate worse than death. At this moment, a trace of hesitation flashed across Han Shui's pretty face. She knew that the effects of the bone-softening powder on her and her sister hadn't faded yet. They didn't have any fighting ability at all. To Zhuowen, they would only be a burden. Zhuowen had done enough for the two of them. She didn't want to be a burden to this young man in front of her. Therefore, Han Shui bit her red lips and said, "Lu Yuan, if you let go of Zhuowen and Han Yu, I'll go with you willingly. My life or death is up to you." Han Shui's words attracted the attention of many people present. Lu Yuan's greedy eyes swept over Han Shui's perfect and hot body. He couldn't help but reveal a trace of lust in the depths of his eyes. If Miss Han Shui's words are true, I will naturally agree to Miss Han Shui's suggestion. However, I am determined to obtain the Ice Fiend Pearl. If this little brother is willing to hand over the Ice Fiend Pearl, I will agree to Miss Han Shui's suggestion. Speaking of this, Lu Yuan reluctantly moved his eyes away from Han Shui's delicate body. Then, he stared coldly at the indifferent Zhuowen not far away. "Zhuowen. They have two experts of the Yin Void Realm. One of them is even at the first level of the Yin Void Realm. We're no match for them. You'd better hand over the Ice Demon Pearl to Lu Yuan and leave with my sister." Han Shui looked at Zhuowen with pleading eyes and said in a firm tone. Zhuowen gently stroked Han Shui's silky black hair as he stared at the stubborn woman in front of him. "You silly woman, do you think that this fellow will let us go just because you've agreed to go with him? I'm afraid that after we hand over the Ice Demon Pearl, he will still attack us." Speaking of this, Zhuowen turned his eyes to Lu Yuan and said calmly, "I can give you the Ice Demon Pearl, but I have a condition." "A condition? Boy, you're at my mercy now. Do you have the right to negotiate with me?" Lu Yuan snorted and said. "Oh. It seems that you won't agree. Then I'll have to detonate the Ice Demon Pearl. At worst, we'll die together." Zhuo Dao wasn't surprised by Lu Yuan's words. He knew that Lu Yuan wasn't a soft-hearted person, so he took out an Ice Fiend Frost Pearl and played with it. He looked at Lu Yuan with a meaningful gaze. Lu Yuan's expression suddenly changed. He had naturally heard of the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl. The Ice Fiend Frost Pearl contained most of the Yin Qi in the mysterious ice pool. Once this Yin Qi exploded, even a corporeal Yang stage warrior would not be able to withstand it. If Zhuowen really detonated the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl, no one here would be able to survive. "Are you threatening me?" Lu Yuan looked at Zhuowen coldly and said. "You can take it that way. Or are you willing to die together with us?" Zhuowen said with a mocking look in his eyes as he played with the Ice Demon Pearl in his hand. Hearing this, Lu Yuan's face suddenly twitched. He had to be careful about Zhuowen's words. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Lu Yuan said coldly, "Say it. What are your conditions?" The corners of Zhuo Wen's mouth curled up slightly as he said indifferently, "Fight with me. If I win, you have to let us leave this place. If I lose, I will give you the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl and you can do whatever you want with us. How about that?" Hearing Zhuo Wen's words, everyone looked at the calm young man in front of them in disbelief. Lu Yuan was not a warrior at the peak of the Nirvana realm like Lu Feng. He was a real warrior of the Yin Void realm. Although he had just advanced to the Yin Void realm, he was still much stronger than a warrior of the Nirvana realm. Lu Yuan's expression became a little strange. Finally, he looked at the skinny young man in front of him with contempt and said, "Boy. Don't think that you are great just because you defeated Lu Feng. In my eyes, your strength is not enough. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Hehe, I agree to your conditions." "Zhuowen, are you crazy? Lu Yuan is a real warrior of the Yin Void realm. How can you be so impulsive and challenge him?" Behind him, Han Shui heard Zhuowen's conditions. Her heart suddenly trembled and she could not help but shout. Han Yu, who had been silent, looked at Zhuowen's back worriedly. Her gaze was complicated, but she did not say anything. She did not know why, but she always had an inexplicable confidence in the not-so-strong figure in front of her. This confidence was established when Zhuowen risked his life to save her. "If you die this time, I will accompany you." Staring at Zhuowen's back with her beautiful eyes, Han Yu thought to herself. Zhuowen ignored Han Shui who was standing behind him like an ant on a hot pan. Instead, he pointed at Lu Yuan and said, "Since you've agreed, let's start the fight. After I'm done with you, I still have to go home to eat and sleep. Arrogant brat, you will pay the price for your arrogance." Lu Yuan snorted coldly and suddenly straightened his waist. Suddenly, an extremely powerful fluctuation came from his body. Then, the surging original energy suddenly condensed in his fists. Lu Yuan bent his legs and his whole body rushed toward Zhuowen like a cannonball. Wherever he passed, the surrounding air boiled like boiling water. Seeing the power of Lu Yuan's attack, many people's pupils shrank. They secretly praised him in their hearts. No wonder he was a warrior of the Yin Void realm. His power was indeed extraordinary. He was indeed much stronger than Lu Feng. When Han Shui and Han Yu saw that Lu Yuan actually possessed such a powerful aura, their pretty faces changed involuntarily. Their gazes simultaneously landed on the back of the young man who was standing not far away from them. Traces of worry gradually spread across their eyes. At this moment, Zhuowen's gaze could not help but become dignified. His right hand suddenly pointed between his eyebrows. Suddenly, 9 sword shadows whizzed and appeared around Zhuowen's body. At the same time, the giant armor soul in Zhuowen's sea of consciousness was constantly exerting its huge power. Under the effect of the giant armor soul, the 9 sword shadows buzzed and suddenly expanded many times. Waves of powerful aura were emitted from the 9 sword shadows. "Giant, worship of the 9 directions." A low shout came from Zhuowen's throat. Then, the 9 huge sword shadows suddenly turned into a huge golden sword. With a rumbling sound, it slashed diagonally toward Lu Yuan with lightning and thunder. Chapter 53. Maple Leaf of Death Rumble. A ball of light that was as bright as the sun suddenly exploded between the two. Following which, the powerful force produced a powerful shockwave that continuously spread in all directions. The powerful sound waves produced by the violent collision continued to spread in all directions, causing some of the surrounding people to involuntarily cover their ears. Under this powerful shockwave, other than the old man that Lu Yuan brought along, who stood motionless on the spot, the rest of the people involuntarily retreated a dozen steps. After they stopped, they looked at the place where the two of them were fighting not far away. Their eyes were filled with shock. They did not expect the collision between the two of them to be so exaggerated. After the dazzling light gradually faded, everyone saw that the huge golden sword was like a mountain pressing down on Lu Yuan. Immediately, they could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. They did not expect Zhuowen to gain the upper hand with this move. Looks like you have some skills. However, don't be so naive as to think that this is all I have. Although the huge sword was pressing down on Lu Yuan's fists were like steel as he blocked the huge sword with his bare hands. Following which, he laughed sinisterly. The Yuan power in his body was like a burst water pipe as it violently poured out along his meridians. Stone-splitting palm. Break for me. Dense Yuan power wrapped around his palm. Following which, Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with malevolence as he fiercely slashed at the huge sword over a dozen times. The air trembled and strong winds swirled. Kacha! A clear sound suddenly rang out. Unexpectedly, a crack began to appear on the surface of the huge sword under Lu Yuan's stone-splitting palm. Following which, the cracks continued to spread like a spider web, wrapping the entire huge sword within it. Following which, under everyone's gaze, the huge sword suddenly crumbled inch by inch and turned into fine powder. Looking at the gradually dissipating huge sword, Lu Yuan's face revealed a trace of pride. Just as he was about to turn his head to look for Zhuowen's figure, a figure shot towards him like a cannonball. At the same time, a strong wind whistled behind him. A trace of an ominous feeling rose in his heart. Lu Yuan suddenly turned around and saw Zhuowen with a strange smile on his face throwing a punch towards him. Lu Yuan was caught off guard and hurriedly raised his hands to protect his vitals. Lu Yuan, you're underestimating me too much. You're full of flaws. A cold voice rang out from Zhuowen's mouth. Immediately after, the blood veins on Zhuowen's arms burst open. His muscles swelled up layer by layer. At the same time, the strength of 7 dragons in his body fiercely condensed in his arms. He punched out. The powerful strength even tore the air apart, producing a hissing sound. The golden dragon chi mixed with the strange bloodlines in Zhuowen's fist at the same time, and an extremely powerful force came from his fist. Feeling the power of Zhuowen's punch, Lu Yuan's expression suddenly changed. He looked at the indifferent young man in front of him in disbelief. He couldn't imagine how this young man, who was only at the soul transformation realm, could exert such a powerful force that even he, a warrior of the Yin Void realm, had to be afraid of. However, at this critical moment, Lu Yuan did not have much time to think. At this moment, he could only gather all the Yuan power in his body into his arms. His arms protected the vital parts of his body, hoping to block Zhuowen's full force punch. Bang! Zhuowen's fist instantly hit Lu Yuan's arms at the speed of light. Immediately after, a circular wave was produced between the two, like a ripple spreading out in all directions. The huge force produced by the fusion of the dragon chi and the blood veins suddenly poured into Lu Yuan's body. With a muffled groan, Lu Yuan, who was in midair, actually flew downwards like a withered leaf. After which, he heavily smashed into the ground. With a loud bang, a huge hole was smashed into the ground. Smoke and dust filled the air as well. At this moment, the scene was terrifyingly silent. Everyone looked at the huge hole not far away in disbelief. They knew that this hole was caused by Lu Yuan's fall. They could not imagine that Lu Yuan, a warrior of the Yin Void realm, would be beaten to such a state by Zhuowen, who was only at the soul transformation realm. When the smoke and dust gradually dispersed, the scene in the hole was presented to everyone's eyes. At this moment, Lu Yuan's hair was disheveled and his clean and tidy white clothes were tattered. At this moment, Lu Yuan no longer had the image of an elegant young master. Instead, he looked like a beggar who had not bathed for a long time. Everyone inhaled a breath of cold air in unison when they saw Lu Yuan's miserable appearance. Soon after, everyone's gazes turned and gathered their attention on the young figure that was slowly descending from the sky. At this moment, everyone's gazes had become different. They knew that although the cultivation of this ordinary young man in front of them was only at the soul transformation realm, the strength contained in his body could be said to be extremely terrifying. How is this possible? How can Zhuowen be so strong? His cultivation is clearly only at the soul transformation realm. Lu Feng, who was not far away, was stunned for a moment. Then, his eyes were filled with disbelief as he involuntarily cried out. When the originally calm old man in linen saw that Lu Yuan was actually punched into the ground by Zhuowen, a trace of fluctuation appeared in his eyes. His gaze shifted slightly and a trace of faintly discernible killing intent spread out from the depths of his eyes. "Bastard brat! I'm going to kill you. You'll pay the price for your actions." A roar like that of a wild beast came from the hole. Then, Lu Yuan, whose body was filled with a baleful aura, suddenly leapt out of the hole. His feet stomped on the ground and an extremely powerful origin energy immediately caused the solid ground to crack open. "Soul skill, Maple Leaf of Death." A low shout slowly came from Lu Yuan's throat. Then, his right hand suddenly pointed at the center of his brows. Then, a bright red maple leaf appeared in the center of his palm. A powerful fluctuation was emitted from this maple leaf. Looking at the maple leaf in Lu Yuan's hand, a trace of seriousness appeared in Zhuowen's eyes for the first time. He could feel that this maple leaf contained a powerful strength. This strength was something that Zhuowen had never seen before. "Brat! You're able to force me to use my ultimate soul skill. Even if you die, you should be proud of yourself." As he spoke, Lu Yuan suddenly threw the maple leaf in his hand into the air. Invisible ripples spread out like ripples in a radius of 10 steps around Lu Yuan. Then, Zhuowen discovered in shock that the maple leaf in the air was rapidly splitting into countless maple leaves. A bright red color immediately dyed the entire space red. The densely packed maple leaves wrapped around Lu Yuan's entire body. Under the cover of countless maple leaves, Lu Yuan's entire body became a red giant that was more than 10 feet tall. Boom! The blood-red giant suddenly took a step forward, and a powerful force caused the entire ground to collapse. The violent tremors were so intense that even Han Shui and the others, who were more than 100 steps away from the two of them, could clearly feel it. "Elder sister. I didn't expect Lu Yuan's armor soul to be so terrifying. I'm afraid that Zhuowen is in danger." Han Yu looked at the blood-red giant that Lu Yuan had transformed into, and her pretty face turned deathly pale. Her jade-like hands couldn't help but pinch Han Shui's hands. Because she used too much strength, Han Shui's hands even left red marks on them. Han Shui didn't care about the pain in her arms. Instead, she was a little disappointed as she hugged Han Yu and said, "Speaking of which, we've dragged Zhuowen down this time. Even though we know that Zhuowen is in danger, we can't do anything about it. If Zhuowen dies this time, I won't be able to live in this world." Lu Feng, who wasn't far from Han Shui and Han Yu, revealed a look of delight. He knew that once Lu Yuan used this soul skill that could be considered as a trump card, victory was basically assured. "Zhuowen, you've also had a day like this. Let's see if you'll die this time." Lu Feng was very clear about the strength of Lu Yuan's soul skill, the Maple Leaf of Death. Back then, Lu Yuan had used this soul skill to defeat a martial artist at the peak of the Nirvana realm. In his opinion, no matter how powerful Zhuowen was, it was impossible for him to survive under the Maple Leaf of Death. The blood-red giant stomped on the ground, and its huge body flew towards Zhuowen at an extremely fast speed like a vigorous monkey. Its huge blood-red fist, which was wrapped in countless blood-red maple leaves, flew towards Zhuowen. The powerful force even formed a violent gale around it. "Looks like it's going to be very troublesome this time. However, if you think that what I've just displayed is my full strength, you're very wrong," Zhuowen said in a low voice. After that, he took a deep breath and the muscles in his arms suddenly tightened. Countless blood veins spread throughout Zhuowen's body. The exploding muscles even tore apart Zhuowen's clothes, revealing the strong muscles on Zhuowen's body that didn't match his age. First heavenly layer of rampage. Zhuowen displayed the first heavenly layer of rampage to the extreme. Countless blood veins spread all over Zhuowen's body like roots. After that, Zhuowen took another deep breath. The five-clawed golden dragon in his dantian suddenly spewed out a dense golden dragon aura, which flowed endlessly through the meridians in Zhuowen's body. Traces of dragon roars whistled out from Zhuowen's body. After that, Zhuowen roared and bounced his legs. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, he didn't retreat. Instead, he advanced bravely. Compared to the blood-red giant, his petite body was much smaller. He actually wanted to confront the seemingly powerful blood-red giant head-on. Is this kid crazy? Not only did he not retreat, he chose to meet force with force. It seems like he doesn't know how terrifying young Master Lu Yuan's soul skill is. Lu Feng, who was not far away, sneered when he saw Zhuowen's seemingly reckless behavior. The hemp-clothed elder beside Lu Feng frowned slightly. He didn't know why, but he felt a trace of danger from Zhuowen's skinny body. Bang! Zhuowen's fist covered in blood veins violently collided with the blood-red fist of the blood-red giant. With a loud boom, the ground where the two were standing suddenly cracked. A huge crater was formed under the powerful force of the collision. Pooh! Zhuowen immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. After that, under the gaze of the crowd, Zhuowen withstood the mountain-like fist of the blood-red giant and continuously retreated. Zhuowen, who was continuously retreating, had blood-red eyes. Then, he raised his head to the sky and roared. Countless dragon roars erupted from his body. Primeval Chaos Dragon Roar Fist, 7 Dragons Roar. Roar! Under the horrified gazes of the crowd, dazzling 5-clawed golden dragons drilled out of Zhuowen's body. When the 7th 5-clawed golden dragon drilled out of Zhuowen's body, Zhuowen stopped in his tracks. Then, Zhuowen raised his head to look at the blood-red giant in front of him. The maple leaf of death is only so. Chapter 54. The Great Reversal. He blocked it. He actually managed to block it. Everyone's gazes were filled with disbelief as they stared at the skinny figure standing before the mountain-like fist. Gasps could be heard one after another. The hemp-clothed elder's pupils shrank to the size of needles. For the first time, a trace of shock appeared on his calm face. Even he did not expect that Zhuowen would actually be able to block Lu Yuan's maple leaf of death. Reckless brat, die for me. If I don't kill you today, my surname is not Lu. The crimson giant's huge eyes suddenly burst with a bloody light. It roared at the sky, and its fists were like pile drivers as it continuously punched at Zhuowen. Countless blade-like maple leaves also shot towards Zhuowen with the wind from its fists. Zhuowen's gaze focused. Not to be outdone, he swung his fist upwards. 7 majestic 5-clawed golden dragons followed Zhuowen's fist as they unceremoniously flew towards the blood-colored giant. Their huge dragon claws unceremoniously grabbed at the giant's vital points. Rumble. A huge explosion resounded as boundless energy flew in all directions following the intense collision between the two. A powerful hurricane was formed between the two. Bang! The two separated as soon as they came into contact. Immediately after, they both retreated a dozen steps. After drawing 2 extremely deep gashes in the ground, they stood at their respective positions facing each other. Let's continue. I can already feel that my primordial dragon roar fist is showing signs of a breakthrough. Perhaps after a few more rounds with you, I might be able to break through. Zhuowen laughed out loud as a glint flashed across his eyes. Following which, both of his legs shot out like a cannonball and flew towards Zhuowen with a swoosh. Powerful Yuan power also covered his entire body. Good. You're very good. You actually want to use me as your training stone. I think you're courting death. When I capture you later, I'll let you taste the feeling of living a life worse than death. Although Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with killing intent, his heart was extremely shocked. Originally, he thought that using the maple leaf of death to transform into a blood-colored giant would absolutely crush Zhuowen. However, he did not expect that Zhuowen actually had a trump card that was not weaker than his maple leaf of death. This kid is only 15 years old and his cultivation is only at the soul transformation realm. However, his strength is not weaker than a Yin Void realm warrior. If I let this kid continue to develop, he will definitely be a disaster in the future. Today, I must get rid of this kid. Lu Yuan thought in his heart. Then, with boundless killing intent, he flew towards Zhuowen. Bang bang bang. It was yet another bloody and barbaric physical collision. The two of them seemed to be in a killing frenzy as they continuously collided and fought with each other. It was as if they were not tired at all. The enormous yuan power emitted from their fight even destroyed the surrounding tall trees into dust. Even the solid ground had many scar-like cracks appearing. Boom! The two of them separated once again, and everyone's gazes gathered on the two of them. When they saw the injuries on their bodies, everyone couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. They saw that there were many palm-sized holes on the body of the blood-colored giant that was more than 10 feet tall. Fresh blood poured out like a faucet that was not turned on properly, dyeing the ground red. The one who was in an even more miserable state was Zhuo Wen. There was a huge wound on Zhuo Wen's chest that extended from his left shoulder blade all the way to his lower right abdomen. Blood gushed out like a broken dam. However, what was strange was that green energy was flowing from between Zhuo Wen's eyebrows to the wound. This green energy was the effect of the Jade Cauldron Armor Soul's soul skill, Immortal Essence. Under the effect of the Immortal Essence, the huge wound on Zhuo Wen's chest stopped bleeding at a speed visible to the naked eye. The wound was also slowly forming a scab. What a terrifying physical strength and self-recovery ability. This person must have another kind of armor soul in his body that can heal injuries. In addition to the Shadow Sword armor soul just now, he actually has twin armor souls. Who is this person? The hemp-clothed elder stared at Zhuo Wen. When he saw that the wound on Zhuo Wen's chest was gradually healing, his face could not help but reveal a shocked expression. Old mister, you said that Zhuo Wen actually has two types of armor souls in his body? Lu Feng stood not far from the hemp-clothed elder. When he heard the elder say that Zhuo Wen actually had twin armor souls in his body, he could not help but feel his mouth go dry. His throat unconsciously rolled. One had to know that if a martial artist with twin armor souls did not die prematurely, he would definitely become a top expert in the future. The hemp-clothed elder glanced at Lu Feng indifferently and nodded without saying anything. Instead, he solemnly looked at the devastated battlefield not far away. After hearing the hemp-clothed elder's affirmation, a helpless smile appeared on Lu Feng's face. At the same time, he thought of Zhuo Wen's heaven-defying fighting strength. He knew that the young figure not far away from him was not simple. Perhaps he had really provoked someone he should not have provoked. You don't have to worry. Although this child's background is very likely not small, if we kill him on the spot, then everything will be unknown. The power behind this child will not be able to find out that it was our Lu family who did it. You should know that young Master Lu Yuan has not used that trump card yet. The hemp-clothed elder seemed to have seen through Lu Feng's worries and said with a faint smile. Trump card? Does young Master Lu Yuan really know how to use that move? When Lu Feng heard this, he was immediately shocked. He immediately looked at the blood-red figure not far away with fear on his face. Zhuo Wen, I really did not think that you would be able to force me to this extent. It looks like I have no choice but to use that move. Although I am very unwilling to use it in front of others, I have no choice now. An ugly smile appeared on the blood-red giant's face. Then, it stomped on the ground. The countless maple leaves in its body suddenly emitted a monstrous blood-red light. An incomparable aura suddenly poured out of the giant's body. Zhuo Wen narrowed his eyes. He could sense that the blood-red giant's aura was rising at an extremely exaggerated rate. Then, the countless maple leaves on the blood-red giant's body suddenly fell off. Only when the last maple leaf fell off did Lu Yuan's body appear. At this moment, Lu Yuan's face was very pale. Drops of cold sweat dripped down from his forehead. It was clear that he was in great pain. Although Lu Yuan's face was filled with pain, he still revealed a sinister smile. He glanced at Zhuo Wen before grasping with both hands. Next, countless maple leaves abruptly fused together. Rustling sounds rang out as the countless maple leaves formed a massive, red-colored mountain that was tens of zhang tall. Maple Crush. Zhuo Wen, I once used this move to kill a peak Nirvana Realm cultivator with my early Nirvana Realm cultivation. You should die without regrets to die under this move. At this moment, Lu Yuan's face was extremely pale. Large droplets of sweat flowed down his face like water from a faucet that had not been turned on properly. His hands even began to tremble. It was clear that the side effects of this move were not small. However, Lu Yuan still revealed a complacent smile. He gently waved his right hand at Zhuowen and the huge blood-red mountain shot towards Zhuowen like a meteor. Wherever it passed, the air was torn to shreds, forming a powerful hurricane. The destructive power of the blood-red mountain immediately caused everyone's eyelids to twitch. Then, a trace of shock appeared on everyone's faces. The power of the blood-red mountain had exceeded everyone's expectations. The outcome has already been decided. Since young Master Lu Yuan has used this move in the end, Zhuowen will not have the slightest chance of turning the tables. In fact, under this move, he will not even be able to keep his life. The hemp-clothed elder glanced indifferently at the blood-red mountain that was shooting towards Zhuowen. His deep eyes were filled with ruthlessness. Not far away, Han Shui and Han Yu also felt the huge fluctuation from the blood-red mountain. The two women's pretty faces could not help but turn incomparably pale. They bit their red lips and stared intently at the young man standing not far away with his head held high. Their faces were filled with determination. They knew that once Zhuowen died, they would not continue living in this world. Under everyone's gaze, Zhuowen took a deep breath. Then, his fists trembled slightly. The five-clawed golden dragon in his dantian climbed onto Zhuowen's fists. He knew that this was the final clash of life and death. If he could withstand this attack, he would win. If he could not, only defeat awaited him. Primeval Chaos Dragon Roar Fist, 8 Dragons Roar. A low roar came from Zhuowen's throat. He raised his eyes and saw Zhuowen throwing out his fists without any fear. A violent dragon roar resounded through the sky. Then, an eighth five-clawed golden dragon that was not any weaker than the blood-red mountain suddenly rushed out from Zhuowen's body. Then, the enormous five-clawed golden dragon stared coldly at the blood-red mountain that was flying towards it. It roared towards the sky and a huge fifth claw extended from its lower abdomen. Then, it grabbed at the blood-red mountain without any fear. With a loud explosion, the golden and blood-red light suddenly burst apart. The extremely dazzling light caused everyone to cover their eyes subconsciously. Then, an earthquake-like tremor followed closely. A spiderweb-like crack appeared on the ground within a radius of 10 miles. When the light gradually faded, a clear cracking sound was heard. Then, everyone opened their eyes and looked towards the battlefield. However, what they saw made everyone stunned. They saw that the surface of the blood-red mountain in the sky above the battlefield had cracks. These cracks continued to spread as time passed. Finally, under everyone's gaze, it turned into withered maple leaves that fell to the ground. Hiss! Gasps rang out one after another. No one had expected Zhuowen to be able to break through Lu Yuan's powerful blood-colored mountain peak. Lu Yuan, who was not far away, saw this scene. The smile on his face instantly froze. Then, an expression of disbelief slowly spread from the depths of his eyes. However, before Lu Yuan could recover, a figure suddenly flew over. Then, the figure suddenly punched Lu Yuan's lower abdomen. Then, the hand grabbed Lu Yuan's collar and lifted him up. Lu Yuan. It seems that I have won this battle. Chapter 55. Broken contract and dangerous situation lost. I didn't think that young Master Lu Yuan would actually lose. Lu Feng sat down on the ground and muttered to himself in a daze. The hemp-clothed elder standing beside Lu Feng twitched his face. Just a moment ago, he had confidently predicted that Lu Yuan would win, but Zhuowen's abnormal performance had given him a fierce slap in the face. His eyes slowly narrowed into a dangerous arc. A trace of coldness faintly leaked out from the depths of the hemp-clothed elder's eyes. Han Shui and Han Yu stared blankly at the figure that wasn't very sturdy but was very tall on the battlefield. Only when the two girls rubbed their eyes and saw that the figure was indeed carrying Lu Yuan, did the two girls cry tears of joy. They knew that Zhuowen had really won. He's an amazing guy who can turn the impossible into the possible. Every time he's in a desperate situation, this guy can always surprise others. Han Xue's eyes sparkled as she looked at the figure. She couldn't help but spit out these words from her mouth. On the battlefield, because of his neck being choked, Lu Yuan's entire face was incomparably red. At this moment, Lu Yuan's eyes were red as he glared at Zhuowen. He struggled and screamed, "How is this possible? How can a mere soul transformation realm warrior like you defeat me? I can't accept this." Zhuowen couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Lu Yuan, whose mind was currently filled with anger. After fiercely slapping Lu Yuan a few times, he said indifferently, "I'm very sorry, but the reality is that you have already been defeated by me. Now, you should fulfill your promise and let us leave. If you continue to pester me, I don't mind staining my hands with blood." Hearing this, Lu Yuan's heart immediately turned cold. Especially when he saw the dense killing intent in the eyes of this harmless youth in front of him. He believed that if he didn't fulfill his promise, this youth in front of him would very likely kill him without mercy. Humph. This young master's words carry enormous weight. Naturally, I will fulfill my promise. Uncle Chang, there's no need to stop the sisters. Let them leave on their own. Lu Yuan coldly snorted. Immediately after, he looked at the hemp-clothed elder behind Zhuowen and coldly said. Following Lu Yuan's gaze, Zhuowen also squinted at the back. He knew that the strongest person here was the old man in sackcloth brought by Lu Yuan. The old man's strength had reached the first level of the Yin Void Realm, which was far stronger than Lu Yuan, who had just entered the Yin Void Realm. The elder in linen robes glanced coldly at Zhuowen before he nodded respectfully at Lu Yuan. He then calmly looked at Han Xue and Han Yu and said, "Since this is the young master's order, you may leave." Han Xue bit her red lips and looked at Zhuowen hesitantly. "Zhuowen, what will happen to you if we leave? What if they attack you?" Zhuowen smiled faintly and said, "You guys go first. I have my own way to get away. To be frank, you won't be of any help even if you stay." Hearing Zhuowen's words, Han Xue also understood that she and Han Yu would only be a burden if they stayed. Although the effect of the bones softening powder in her body had faded a little, her strength was far from its peak. At most, she was equivalent to a warrior of the Nirvana realm. With such strength, she wouldn't be of much help. Han Xue reluctantly looked at the young man with a clear smile in front of her. She gritted her teeth and finally left with Han Yu. "Zhuowen, I have already let the sisters go. Now, you should let the young master go." The old man in sackcloth grinned. His turbid eyes were filled with coldness. At the same time, an extremely powerful aura erupted from his body. Zhuowen's expression changed when he felt the powerful aura from the old man's body. However, he shook the willow garden in his hand and said, "Of course, I will release it. However, I will have to wait until I leave this place first. Treacherous brat, you better let the young master go now. Otherwise, you will regret it later." The old man in sackcloth's eyes instantly turned into a thick killing intent as he coldly said. Zhuowen grinned and turned to look at Lu Yuan in his hand. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly saw a strange smile on Lu Yuan's face. An ominous premonition immediately spread from the bottom of his heart. "Zhuowen, be careful. The old man in sackcloth has already made his move. He is now behind you. Dodge quickly." Xiao Hei's anxious voice immediately sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Zhuowen's eyes focused and he immediately turned his head. He was stunned to find that the old man in sackcloth was still standing at the same spot with a cold smile on his face. However, due to his trust in Xiao Hei, Zhuowen twisted his waist and his entire body strangely moved to the side. Then, Zhuowen saw a wrinkled hand appear at the spot where he was originally standing. At the same time, an incomparably powerful yuan power undulation was emitted from this somewhat withered hand. Zhuowen groaned and involuntarily retreated. A soft sound of surprise sounded from behind Zhuowen. Then, the withered hand turned into a claw and suddenly grabbed onto Zhuowen's right hand that was holding Lu Yuan. Zhuowen could feel a huge force coming from this hand. He frowned and involuntarily let go of his right hand. Seeing that Zhuowen had loosened his right hand, the withered hand did not follow up with another attack. Instead, it gently picked up Lu Yuan, who had collapsed to the ground due to her heavy injuries. Then, a figure slowly appeared in the air. Looking at the sudden appearance of the old man in sackcloth, Zhuowen's brows furrowed. His gaze turned to look at another direction. There was also the figure of an old man in sackcloth there. However, the expression on the old man's face was extremely stiff. Then, under Zhuowen's somewhat gloomy gaze, the old man slowly faded away. This is... Just as Zhuowen's head was filled with confusion, Xiao Hei's voice promptly transmitted into Zhuowen's mind. Kid, just as you saw, the old man you saw just now should be an illusion. The real old man has already concealed himself in the air and is preparing to launch a sneak attack on you. If this dragon lord did not warn you, perhaps you would already be a corpse by now. What kind of ability is this? It can actually create an illusion that is exactly the same as the real person, while the real person is concealed. This kind of ability is quite terrifying. Zhuowen's gaze suddenly became serious. Looking at the old man in sackcloth not far away, he was also filled with fear. This should be the soul skill of that old fellow's armor soul. However, such a powerful soul skill should have a certain limit. From my many years of experience, this old fellow needs a period of time before he can use this soul skill again. Therefore, you don't have to be afraid that this old fellow will use this soul skill again later. Xiao Hei's voice once again transmitted into Zhuowen's mind. However, there was a hint of schadenfreude in her voice. Not far away, Lu Yuan had also recovered from some of his injuries with the help of the old man in sackcloth. Following which, he looked at Zhuowen with a sinister gaze. A cold smile appeared on his face as he said, Uncle Chang, you must capture this kid. You don't have to kill him. Just take the ice fiend icy pearl from him. After that, I will slowly return some of the pain to him. After he finished speaking, Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Zhuowen and said, Zhuowen, I said that I will let you experience the feeling of living a life worse than death. I will also capture those two beautiful sisters. When the time comes, I will fuck those two bitches in front of you. Uncle Chang, I will leave this fellow to you. Lu Feng, you piece of trash. Take your men and chase after those two beautiful sisters. Lu Yuan once again looked at Zhuowen with a sinister gaze. Following which, he ordered Lu Yuan to lead a group of people in the direction that Han Shui and Han Yu had left in. Zhuowen looked at the old man in sackcloth who had a look of disdain on his face and said coldly, I didn't expect your Lu clan to be such despicable people who don't keep their promises. How disgusting. Hee hee. Kid, as long as I kill you, what happened here will not be leaked out. Also, you have achieved so much at such a young age. This has already made me feel a sense of crisis. Your talent is the first I have seen in my life. If I let you go just like this, I am afraid our entire Lu clan will not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Therefore, it is better for you to die. The old man in sackcloth cracked the corners of his mouth. Following which, an extremely powerful aura erupted from his body. Following which, his legs suddenly bounced off and his entire body shot towards Zhuowen like a cannonball. Zhuowen snorted coldly. He knew that no matter what he said, he would not be able to change the old man's mind to kill him. Therefore, Zhuowen did not waste any time and dodged the old man's attack in a flash. Following which, the origin energy in Zhuowen's body suddenly erupted. At the same time, he used the first sky of rampage and the crimson dragon fist. Streams of blood erupted from the surface of Zhuowen's body. At the same time, his fists were filled with golden dragon energy. First sky of rampage. Crimson dragon fist, 8 dragon roars. The streams of blood and dragon energy intertwined and converged on Zhuowen's fists. Following which, Zhuowen let out a low roar and violently punched the old man's body. A crisp sound of metal colliding rang out. Following which, Zhuowen realized that his fist seemed to have hit an indestructible metal. Looking up, Zhuowen discovered that the old man's body had formed a crystal clear ice armor. Is this the void armor? What shocked Zhuowen even more was that the ice armor on the old man's body did not show any signs of cracking after receiving Zhuowen's full force punch. In fact, Zhuowen did not even see a single crack on the surface of the ice armor. The toughness of the void armor had clearly exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. Zhuowen, don't be in a daze. That old man's attack is coming. Why aren't you dodging? Just as Zhuowen was in a daze because of the toughness of the void armor on the old man's body, Xiao Hei's anxious voice rang out in his mind. After Xiao Hei's reminder, Zhuowen regained his senses. However, the old man's huge fist was already inches away from him. For the first time, a trace of panic flashed across Zhuowen's eyes. Following which, he raised his arms to protect his vitals, hoping that he could block the old man's attack. Chapter 56. Chapter 56. Xiao Hei's dragon. As the dust gradually dissipated, an elderly figure slowly descended from the sky. The hemp-clothed elder's eyes were emotionless as he stared at the young figure in the deep pit nearby. He said in an indifferent voice, "You are called Zhuowen, right? Even this old man feels a slight chill towards the frightening talent you have displayed. Unfortunately, you have offended young Master Lu Yuan, so you must die today." Zhuowen slowly climbed out of the hole and coughed up a few more mouthfuls of blood. He stared at the old man in sackcloth, who was not far away. Now he truly felt the huge gap between himself and the Yin Void Realm. "Old dog, if I don't die today, I will definitely go to your Lu family in the future and wipe your Lu family off the face of this world, I swear." Zhuowen's gaze was extremely cold. Both of his eyes were filled with extremely ferocious veins, causing one to feel a chill down one's spine. The hemp-clothed old man could not help but feel a chill in his heart when he saw the deep hatred in Zhuowen's eyes. Zhuowen was able to defeat Lu Yuan at the soul transformation stage. This was enough to show how powerful Zhuowen's talent was. If he was given enough time, his strength would definitely become extremely terrifying. If he let Zhuowen go today, the Lu family might really become very dangerous once Zhuowen matured. Thinking of this, the killing intent in the old man's eyes became even stronger. This kid must be killed today. Otherwise, there will be no end of trouble in the future. The old man in linen robes took a step forward, and a boundless killing intent erupted from him. Then, he shot towards Zhuowen like an arrow. This time, he really wanted to kill Zhuowen. Zhuowen's expression changed drastically when he sensed the ferocious wind and the surging murderous intent from the old man's body. He screamed in his heart, "Xiao Hei, if you don't do anything, I'm going to die here today." "Brat, you finally remembered this dragon lord. Now, use the immemorial dragon roar fist on your own. Leave the rest to me." Xiao Hei's lazy voice rang out in Zhuowen's mind. Zhuowen did not doubt Xiao Hei's words. As the old man approached him, Zhuowen had no intention of dodging. Instead, he followed Xiao Hei's instructions and circulated the immemorial dragon roar fist through his meridians. Then, Zhuowen suddenly felt his entire body go numb. He couldn't move at all. Xiao Hei, who was originally floating in his sea of consciousness, had a grave look in her dark golden dragon eyes. Xiao Hei waved her little claws, and an ink-black energy suddenly condensed in her claws. She then clenched her little claws, and the ink-black energy in her claws suddenly exploded, turning into a huge ink-black dragon in front of her. As soon as the huge ink-black dragon was formed, it roared at the sky, and suddenly drilled into Zhuowen's meridians. "Brat, this dragon lord's dragon aura. It's very precious. If you use this dragon lord's dragon aura to perform the immemorial dragon roar fist, it should be enough to deal with this old fellow." Xiao Hei's slightly tired voice slowly rang out in his mind. Then, Zhuowen realized that he could suddenly move his body. Moreover, the ink-black dragon aura that Xiao Hei transmitted to Zhuowen suddenly filled his entire meridians. An indescribable heat was generated in his body, and Zhuowen had no choice but to vent it. Therefore, Zhuowen roared in a low voice, and suddenly punched out with both fists. A strange ink-black energy erupted from his body, and a dragon roar that resounded through the clouds also whizzed out from his body. The hemp-clothed elder also recognized this move of Zhuowen's. He clearly knew that Lu Yuan was defeated by this move of Zhuowen's. A disdainful smile appeared at the corner of the elder's mouth. He said disdainfully, although the power of your armor skill is not bad, your strength is too weak. You can't unleash the power of this armor skill. After I kill you, the Ice Demon Pearl and this armor skill on your body will belong to our Lu family. After he finished speaking, the hemp-clothed elder's Yuan power suddenly erupted, and his entire body's momentum became even more ferocious. In an instant, he was above Zhuowen, and a pair of fists that were filled with powerful Yuan power mercilessly punched towards Zhuowen. Slightly raising his head, Zhuowen's pupils had actually turned dark gold. Zhuowen's lips curled into a cold smile, and his fists fiercely punched towards the hemp-clothed elder. Immemorial Dragon Roar Fist, 8 Dragons Roar. A low roar came from his throat, and a wave of ink-like energy erupted from Zhuowen's body. Then, 8 mountain-like ink-black dragons emerged from Zhuowen's fists. The 8 ink-black dragons that appeared at this time were much larger than the 5-clawed golden dragon that Zhuowen summoned at the beginning. Even the aura on their bodies was much stronger than the 5-clawed golden dragon. The hemp-clothed elder could also feel that the 8 dragons that appeared from Zhuowen's fists were much stronger than before. However, he was very confident in his own strength. After all, his cultivation was several levels higher than Zhuowen's. Therefore, although he had some doubts in his heart, he didn't think too much about it. Rumble. The 2 fists collided with each other in an instant, and a powerful energy ripple gradually spread out from the place where the 2 collided. Wherever it passed, if the earth didn't shake, the mountains would collapse, and the earth would crack. The energy ripple produced from the collision between the 2 was actually so terrifying. In the sky, the smile on the elder's face froze. Then, a shocked expression slowly climbed up the elder's wrinkled face. This was because he felt that his fist seemed to have hit an indestructible mountain. Then, a powerful energy that even he couldn't resist was transmitted from Zhuowen's fist into his body. Immediately, the elder involuntarily spat out a mouthful of blood. How is this possible? How can you suddenly possess such a powerful strength? This isn't a strength that a soul transformation realm practitioner should possess. At this time, the hemp-clothed elder's expression was as if he had seen a ghost. He looked at the indifferent Zhuowen in front of him in disbelief. At this time, Zhuowen's eyes were no longer dark brown. Instead, they had turned into a strange dark gold. It was as if Zhuowen had turned into another person. Old man, I said that you will pay the price for your actions. And I, Zhuowen, will also be irreconcilable with your Lu family. Now, you can go in peace. A dark gold light flashed through Zhuowen's eyes. Then, the 8 ink-black dragons behind him suddenly roared. Then, they all gathered into Zhuowen's fists. With the 8 dragons gathering, the surface of Zhuowen's fists were immediately surrounded by an ink-black radiance. A powerful energy ripple was also emitted from Zhuowen's fist. Go to hell, old man. Zhuowen laughed maliciously. His fist immediately smashed towards the hemp-clothed elder's chest without any restraint. A circular air ripple slowly spread out behind the elder. Then, the elder spat out another mouthful of blood. After looking at Zhuowen in disbelief, he slowly fell to the ground. The aura in his body also gradually disappeared. The old man, who had landed on the ground, widened his eyes furiously. He stared at the young figure a short distance away without blinking. Traces of regret rose in the depths of his eyes. He finally understood just how terrifying the young man in front of him was. What kind of person did we offend? This old man is a sinner of the Lu family. I actually offended such a terrifying person for the family. This old man is unwilling. An unwilling roar came from the elder's throat. Then, the elder spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were wide open in anger and he didn't move. He actually died with his eyes open. Looking at the hemp-clothed elder who was gradually losing his breath, the dark gold color in Zhuowen's eyes also quietly faded. Then, an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. Xiao He, what happened just now? Why did the immemorial dragon roar fist become so powerful? Ignoring the injuries on his body, Zhuowen's tone was somewhat anxious as he asked. Kid, there's no need to make such a fuss. You also know that the immemorial Dragon Roar Fist is a very special armor technique. This armor technique can only unleash its true power with the Dragon Aura. Of course, if the quality of the Dragon Aura is higher, the power it can unleash will naturally be stronger. With a swoosh, Xiao He came out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows and sat lazily on Zhuowen's shoulder. Could the ink-black energy in my body just now be your Dragon Aura? Zhuowen was startled and asked with a surprised expression. Kid, you're not stupid. That energy is indeed my Dragon Aura. However, I don't have much Dragon Aura in my body. Kid, don't even think about taking my Dragon Aura. Don't worry, I'm not that kind of person. However, your Dragon Aura is even stronger than a 5-clawed golden dragon. What kind of dragon clan are you? Zhuowen looked straight at Xiao He and asked with a puzzled tone. Xiao He smacked her lips and said hesitantly, My identity is not ordinary. Your current strength is too weak. Knowing my identity will not do you any good. In the future, when you become stronger, you will naturally come to know. This was the first time that Zhuowen had seen the usually lazy Xiao He reveal such a guilty expression. Although he was even more puzzled, since Xiao He didn't want to talk about it, Zhuowen naturally wouldn't pursue the matter. Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen looked into the depths of the forest and said, Xiao He, can you sense the location of Han Shui and Han Yu? Seeing that Zhuowen didn't pursue the matter, Xiao He let out a sigh of relief. She then pointed to the south with her little paw and said, That direction is about 50 miles away from here. You have to speed up. Those two chicks seem to have been surrounded by the people from the Willow Garden. Chapter 57. The death of Lu Yuan. In a rather wide-open space deep in the dense forest, a group of brawny men were surrounding two women in the center. The two women were both beautiful, especially one of the older women. Her figure was extremely hot, causing people to have an impulse to rise with just a glance. The two women were the sisters, Han Shui and Han Yu, who had just escaped from the cave. Although the two women were running away as fast as they could, the effects of the bone-softening powder in their bodies had not subsided. Therefore, their speed was not ideal and they were quickly caught up by Lu Yuan and the others. Han Shui, let's see where you can run to. The effect of the bone-softening powder in your bodies has not subsided. You are no match for us. Why don't you follow me back to the Lu family? A man with a rather sinister expression walked out from the crowd. The gaze he used to size up the two women was filled with lust, causing people to feel extremely disgusted. This man was naturally Lu Yuan, who had been defeated by Zhuowen. Where is Zhuowen? What did you do to him? Han Shui looked at the group of people around her calmly, then looked directly at Lu Yuan and asked. You are at death's door and you are still thinking about that damn brat? To tell you the truth, that brat is dead. Those who offend the Lu family will not have a good ending. With Uncle Chang's cultivation at the first level of the Yin Void realm, he should be able to capture that brat soon. You may see him one last time later. Huh. Lu Yuan laughed, his voice full of coldness and killing intent. He had always held a grudge against the boy who had defeated him. This time, after Uncle Chang personally captured that brat, he would let that brat taste a fate worse than death. Hearing this, Han Shui and Han Yu's faces turned pale. They knew that Uncle Chang was the old man in sackcloth who had been following Lu Yuan around. They did not expect that the old man in sackcloth had reached the first level of the Yin Void realm. Although the fact that Zhuowen was able to defeat Lu Yuan surprised the two girls, the hemp-robed old man's strength far surpassed Lu Yuan's. No matter how abnormal Zhuowen was, he was only a soul transformation realm martial artist. The gap between the two was as wide as a chasm. Lu Yuan, you're too despicable. You clearly lost to Zhuowen and should have let us go. Now, you're publicly breaking the agreement. Do you have any shame? Han Yu, who had been silent all this while, suddenly pointed her finger at Lu Yuan. Her eyes were red as she cried out in a lovely voice. Her pretty face was filled with obvious disgust. Lu Yuan's expression gradually became gloomy when she heard Han Yu's merciless words. She said in a dark and cold voice, "Looks like the two of you are refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Since that is the case, there is no need for me to be courteous with the both of you. Lu Feng, you go and capture Han Yu. Leave Han Shui to me. After I've enjoyed these two women, you'll be the first to have a taste." When Lu Feng, who was beside Lu Yuan, heard this, a trace of ecstasy flashed across his face. A trace of lust vaguely surfaced in the depths of his eyes. He hurriedly replied, "Understood. Attack." With Lu Yuan's command, the person in the lead rushed towards the two women, while Lu Feng followed closely behind. Han Shui gently bit her red lips when she saw the two people dashing towards her. She turned her head to look at Han Yu and said, "Little Yu, I'll block the two of them. You quickly run." "Sister." Han Yu sorrowfully looked at Han Shui's back. She bit her red lips, turned around and dashed in the opposite direction. Han Shui also did her best to circulate the Yuan power in her body. Her beautiful figure flashed and blocked Lu Feng and Lu Yuan, who were at the front. "Hee, you overestimate yourself." When Lu Yuan saw that Han Shui actually wanted to block him and Lu Feng by herself, a trace of a contemptuous smile appeared on his lips. He then mercilessly threw a punch. Yuan power suddenly exploded and a powerful shockwave swept towards Han Shui. Han Shui clearly felt the powerful shockwave from Lu Yuan's punch. A trace of determination flashed across her beautiful eyes. She then gently lifted her jade-like hand. The remaining Yuan power in her body immediately gathered in her jade-like hand. Soon after, a Yuan power wall that was over 10 feet tall was formed in front of her. Bang! When the fist collided with the wall of elemental energy, a dazzling radiance erupted from the point of contact between the fist and the wall of elemental energy. Then, a cracking sound rang out and the wall of elemental energy that Han Shui had painstakingly condensed began to crumble inch by inch like a piece of paper. Han Shui spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backwards continuously. Her beautiful eyes were filled with despair. "Han Shui, let's see where you can escape to now. Once I capture you, I'll definitely toy with you to death." Looking at Lu Yuan who was getting closer and closer to her, Han Shui stealthily pulled out a dagger from her waist. She knew that she was no match for Lu Yuan now. Furthermore, if she were to fall into Lu Yuan's hands, she would definitely suffer more pain than death. Therefore, at this moment, her heart was filled with the desire to die. "Zhuowen, I'm really sorry that I've dragged you into this mess. If there's a next life, I hope that I'll be able to repay everything that I owe you." Just as Han Shui was about to commit suicide, a black shadow suddenly shot towards Lu Yuan at high speed like a sharp arrow. The powerful force even tore the air apart, creating a hissing sound. Lu Yuan, who was originally preparing to capture Han Shui in the air, suddenly had an ominous premonition. Following which, he glanced out of the corner of his eye and immediately discovered that a black shadow was rapidly flying towards him at a speed that seemed to tear through the air. What a fast speed! Lu Yuan's eyes involuntarily narrowed. He immediately forcefully changed his direction in the air. The Yuan power in his body burst forth and gathered in his hands. Following which, he violently threw a punch at the black shadow that was rapidly flying towards him. Bang! The sound of a powerful collision was like the sound of a valley echoing continuously in this space. Following which, Lu Yuan only felt that his arm had become somewhat numb from the impact of the black shadow. With a roar, he violently threw another punch at the black shadow. Instantly, a muffled sound of flesh colliding rang out. After Lu Yuan violently threw more than 10 punches, the black shadow gradually stopped. Lu Yuan also continuously retreated more than 10 steps because of this. There were 2 extremely deep depressions in the ground in front of his feet. It was obvious how powerful the black shadow was. As the black shadow's body stopped, it instantly attracted the attention of everyone present. When everyone saw the black shadow's true appearance, a series of gasps rang out one after another. This was because this black shadow was none other than the hemp-clothed elder who had always been by Lu Yuan's side. Furthermore, after seeing the terrible injuries on the hemp-clothed elder's body, everyone knew that the hemp-clothed elder was most likely already dead. In other words, the hemp-clothed elder was already a corpse. Uncle Chang. Looking at the pale hemp-clothed elder in front of him with his eyes tightly closed, Lu Yuan's eyes once again narrowed to the size of needles. His face was also covered with an expression of disbelief. When everyone confirmed that the hemp-clothed elder was really dead, the whole place suddenly went into an uproar. Then, a strong aura of fear spread out in the field. They all knew that this ordinary-looking hemp-clothed elder's cultivation had actually reached the first level of the Yin Void realm. With such strength, he could instantly kill everyone here. However, such a powerful warrior had actually turned into a corpse at this moment. This involuntarily sent chills down everyone's spine. What kind of existence could kill this elder? Dong dong dong. Light footsteps slowly sounded from a short distance away. Following the sound of these footsteps, everyone's eyes gathered towards the depths of the dense forest. They saw a somewhat dim figure slowly walking out from the depths of the dense forest. Who are you? Did you kill Uncle Chang? Lu Yuan absent-mindedly hugged the hemp-clothed elder. His eyes were slightly fearful as he looked at the figure slowly walking out from the depths of the dense forest. For some reason, he felt that this figure was very familiar to him. When this figure finally appeared in front of everyone, they could not help but gasp again. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. The absent-minded Lu Yuan's eyes revealed an expression as if he had seen a ghost. The corners of his mouth moved slightly, but he was dumbfounded and could not say a word. Young Master Lu Yuan, we have only parted for a short period of time. Can't you recognize me? A faint voice came from this figure. Then, a handsome and clean face appeared in front of everyone. It was Zhuowen who had just arrived. When Zhuowen's figure completely appeared in front of everyone, everyone's eyes were shaken. Han Shui, who originally wanted to commit suicide, also emitted a ray of hope in her beautiful eyes. She looked at the somewhat skinny figure not far away and a trace of a strange light gradually rose in her eyes. You. Impossible. You can't kill Uncle Chang. It's impossible. I don't believe it. Today, I will definitely kill you. Kill you. Lu Yuan's eyes immediately became incomparably red. After a beast-like roar came from his throat, he actually suddenly flew towards Zhuowen. However, his mouth continuously muttered something. Looking at Lu Yuan's current appearance, everyone knew that Lu Yuan could not accept the death of the hemp-clothed elder and had lost some of his rationality. The truth is in front of you. It's useless even if you quibble. Since you don't believe me, I can help you send him to that old fellow's side so that you can personally ask him. Zhuowen's eyes darkened. Lu Yuan wanted to kill him. This kind of future trouble, Zhuowen would definitely not let him live in this world. This time, he planned to get rid of him once and for all. Thinking of this, Zhuowen's eyes became eerily cold. Then, his legs suddenly stomped on the ground and his entire body flew towards Lu Yuan like a cannonball. His body also used the immemorial dragon roar fist and violent blood beast body to the extreme. The strength of both of them gathered on a pair of fists. Then, he suddenly blasted out and immediately smashed directly into Lu Yuan's chest. Lu Yuan violently spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, his entire body was smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. Smoke and dust immediately filled the air. When the smoke and dust gradually dissipated, everyone saw Lu Yuan's miserable appearance in the crater. Immediately, everyone's hearts turned cold. They did not expect that this young man in front of them would be so terrifying when he was angry. Gently falling into the crater, Zhuowen quietly looked at Lu Yuan. At this moment, Lu Yuan was not dead. However, looking at the situation where he was constantly coughing up blood, it was obvious that he was not far from death. Lu Yuan, if you had kept the agreement between us, perhaps this would not have happened. However, you relied on the fact that you had an expert by your side to resolutely break the agreement. This is called the evils you bring upon yourself are the hardest to bear. Therefore, you should be smarter in your next life. Chapter 58. Farewell. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts as they stared at Lu Yuan. Although the young man in front of them looked harmless on the surface, he could be vicious and merciless when he decided to do something. After dealing with Lu Yuan, Zhuowen took the opportunity to put away the Qianquan pouch on his waist without the slightest hint of embarrassment on his face. Not far away, Lu Feng, who originally wanted to capture Han Yu, also saw Lu Yuan being killed. He finally realized that he had offended someone he shouldn't have, so he wanted to take advantage of Zhuowen being distracted by Lu Yuan to sneak away. Lu Feng, where do you think you're going? Zhuowen's cold voice suddenly rang out. Lu Feng, who originally wanted to sneak away, suddenly froze. Then, he suddenly increased his speed, intending to rush into the depths of the forest. How could Zhuowen give him the chance to escape? With a leap, he followed closely behind Lu Feng. Not long after, a shrill scream rang out from the depths of the forest. Then, a figure slowly appeared in the open space. It was Zhuowen, whose face was filled with a murderous aura. At this moment, Zhuowen's face was covered with traces of blood that had yet to dry. Now, he looked ferocious and terrifying. Moreover, his body faintly emitted a frightening murderous aura, as if he was a demon god from ancient times. Seeing Zhuowen's appearance, the group of brawny men that Lu Feng brought with him suddenly trembled with fear. They all put down the weapons in their hands and did not dare to resist. They knew how terrifying this young man in front of them was. Zhuowen did not pay any attention to these brawny men who were already scared out of their wits. These brawny men's cultivations were not high and did not pose the slightest threat to Zhuowen. Therefore, he did not plan to kill them all. After receiving Zhuowen's forgiveness, these brawny men left one by one in gratitude. Zhuowen, are you all right? Seeing how much blood is flowing out of your body, you must have suffered a lot of injuries. Han Shui took out a handkerchief from her bosom and gently wiped the blood off Zhuowen's face. Her beautiful eyes sparkled as she looked at Zhuowen. Zhuowen enjoyed the faint fragrance on Han Shui's body. He closed his eyes and allowed Han Shui to wipe the wounds on his body. At this moment, Zhuowen suddenly felt a soft and cool sensation on his cheeks. Then, Zhuowen felt his lips being covered by something soft and hot. Zhuowen was taken aback. He opened his eyes abruptly and saw Han Shui's beautiful eyes right in front of him. The soft and fiery thing that Zhuowen felt earlier was actually Han Shui's soft lips. However, this soft and comfortable sensation disappeared as soon as he touched her lips. Han Shui blushed and did not dare to look directly at the young man in front of her. Instead, she said shyly, Zhuowen, you have saved my life time and time again. I have no way to repay you and I can only repay you in such a despicable way. Zhuowen looked at Han Shui's embarrassed expression and the lustful look in her beautiful eyes. Coupled with Han Shui's perfect body, an evil fire suddenly rose in his heart. He suddenly pulled Han Shui into his arms and overbearingly covered Han Shui's seductive cherry lips with his own. Han Shui did not expect Zhuowen to make such a sudden move. When she felt the heat on Zhuowen's lips and the possessive look in his eyes, Han Shui felt dizzy for the first time. Her perfect body could not help but tremble violently. Although Han Shui was being wantonly violated by this little man in front of her, she surprisingly did not resist at all. She knew that perhaps she had really fallen in love with this mysterious little man in front of her. If he wanted, she was willing to give herself to him. The two of them were like two hungry and thirsty people who kept demanding from each other. As a college student on Earth in his previous life, Zhuowen knew some of the ways to tease like the back of his hand. Therefore, when he saw that Han Shui's eyes had a hint of deep affection, he took the next step. Just as Zhuowen was about to take the next step, a soft cry suddenly sounded from not far away. When they heard this soft cry, the two of them immediately woke up from their intoxicated state. They then turned their heads to look at the source of the sound. They saw Han Yu with a cold expression looking at the two of them with her mouth wide open. There was a trace of disappointment in the depths of her cold eyes. Seeing the two of them turn their heads at the same time, Han Yu's face could not help but turn red. She turned her head and said, "You guys continue, I'm going to walk around somewhere else." Seeing that it was Han Yu, Han Shue's face became even redder, like a ripe red apple. She struggled and hurriedly left Zhuowen's embrace. She stole a glance at Zhuowen and clasped her hands together like a little girl. Zhuowen was also a little embarrassed. He laughed dryly and said, "That, our matters here have been resolved. Why don't we go back?" When Zhuowen said this, Han Shui nodded lightly and said, "I'll call Han Yu over first." After an hour, Zhuowen and the others finished dealing with the corpses of Lu Yuan and the others. They then boarded the carriage again and planned to return to Rattan Armor City. Han Shui and Han Yu looked at the lush forest and fell silent. This time, they had lost more than 10 brothers. This was a big blow to their Flowing Flame mercenary group. Sitting in the carriage, Zhuowen took out an Ice Fiend ice bead from his universe bag and handed it to Han Shui. "Take this Ice Fiend ice bead." Han Shui looked at Zhuowen in surprise and said in disbelief, "Zhuowen, this time we didn't help at all. We even dragged you down because of this. How can we accept this Ice Fiend ice bead? You guys were the ones who found the cave. If it wasn't for your information, how could I have the chance to obtain this Ice Fiend ice bead? Take it, you guys deserve it. Plus, I still have 2 Ice Fiend ice beads on me." Han Shui also saw the determination in Zhuowen's eyes. She knew that Zhuowen was serious. She gently nodded and said, "Thank you." Han Yu also looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. She also didn't think that Zhuowen would be willing to give them an Ice Fiend ice bead. One had to know that even if Zhuowen still had some Ice Fiend ice beads on him, the more the better. Even if he couldn't use it, he could still sell it for a good price in the auction house. However, Zhuowen didn't hesitate to give it to them. This made Han Yu look at Zhuowen with a strange gaze. Soon, the carriage arrived at Rattan Armor City. Jumping off the carriage, Zhuowen looked at the people coming and going on the streets. He felt a trace of warmth and excitement. Although Zhuowen had only been gone for half a day, this half a day felt like half a year to Zhuowen. In this short period of time, Zhuowen had experienced many life and death situations. "Where do you guys plan to go next?" Zhuowen turned to look at Han Shui and Han Yu in the carriage and asked softly. "Our mercenary group is stationed in Luchuan town. I'm afraid we'll have to return there." Han Shui smiled and said helplessly. "The Lu family has a lot of influence in Luchuan town. If they find out that Lu Yuan's death is related to you guys will really be in danger. I think you should move to Rattan Armor City. I can find a bigger place for your mercenary group to set up camp," Zhuowen said with a frown. "Don't worry. Luchuan town isn't really dominated by the Lu family alone. Do you know why it's called the town of mercenaries? It's because the number of mercenaries in Luchuan town is much greater than the Lu family. Moreover, the mercenaries gathered in Luchuan town have set up a mercenary alliance. With the mercenary alliance, the Lu family won't dare to touch our Flowing Flame mercenary group so easily." Han Shui smiled and looked at Zhuowen with some reluctance. "Little brother Zhuowen, if you have time in the future, you can come find us in Luchuan town. Although our mercenary group's strength can't compare to your Lu family's, our information gathering ability is quite good. Perhaps we can help you with that." "Nichim. I'll definitely come find you in the future. When the time comes, don't reject me." Zhuowen grinned as his eyes wandered over Han Shui's perfect and voluptuous figure. Zhuowen felt an itch in his heart when he recalled the charming and gentle scene between him and Han Shui. However, Zhuowen also knew that now was not the time to do that kind of thing. Therefore, Zhuowen forcefully suppressed the fire in his heart. Han Shui clearly heard the hidden meaning in Zhuowen's words. After rolling her eyes at Zhuowen, her face turned red again. She snorted, "When the time comes, as long as you come, I definitely won't reject you. I'm only afraid that you won't dare to come." After Han Shui uttered these bold words, she immediately waved her horsewhip and left with a sweet smile on her face. Hearing Han Shui's bold words, Zhuowen was startled. When the horse carriage gradually disappeared into the distance, Zhuowen rubbed his nose and muttered to himself, "What a vixen. The next time I find an opportunity to go to Luchuan town, I'll thoroughly punish her on the spot." In a luxurious loft in Luchuan town, not far from Rotan Armor City, a middle-aged man suddenly slammed the table in his right hand. Violent yuan power immediately shattered the table. Go and investigate. Find the murderer who killed Yuan. I want that murderer to pay with his blood. A few figures kneeling in front of the middle-aged man began to tremble. Then, they timidly peeked at the furious middle-aged man in front of them. Master, please calm down. We'll go and find the murderer who killed young Master Lu Yuan. The few of them nodded and ran out in a hurry. Chapter 59. Chen Ting. Ever since he had parted ways with Han Shui and her sister, Zhuowen had been preparing to return to the Zhuo family. However, just as Zhuowen was passing by the market, a figure that seemed to be staggering suddenly caught his attention. Zhuowen took a closer look and immediately recognized that this person was his first opponent in the last family competition, Zhuo Rong. At this moment, Zhuo Rong's face was a little bruised and swollen, and his eyes were a little unfocused, as if he had been severely beaten up. Hurriedly pulling Zhuo Rong back, Zhuo Rong secretly channeled his essence force into Zhuo Rong's body. Zhuo Rong immediately became much more clear-headed. When he saw that the person in front of him was actually Zhuowen, his face instantly revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. What happened? What happened to you? Although Zhuowen and Zhuo Rong were not familiar with each other, they were both members of the Zhuo family after all. Moreover, it was obvious that Zhuo Rong had been beaten up. Naturally, Zhuowen could not sit idly by. Zhuo Rong's face revealed a trace of shame as he bitterly smiled and said, "We met the Wang clan's people at the trade fair in the city center. I don't know why, but they started to target us. They have a lot of people, so we suffered a bit. Now I'm here to call for reinforcements." People from the Wang clan? Zhuowen rubbed his nose. He knew that part of the reason why the Wang family was targeting the Zhuo family was because he had beaten up Wang Jing last time. Sister Xiang and Sister Mei Xue might not be able to hold on for much longer. The Wang family has the advantage in numbers. We'd better hurry back and get reinforcements, Zhuo Rong said anxiously. Zhuowen was startled. He did not expect that Zhuo Xiang and Zhuo Mei Xue would be there as well. He could not help but raise his eyebrows. Take me there. Maybe I can help. Since he knew that the younger generation of the Wang family was targeting the Zhuo family because of him, Zhuowen naturally couldn't sit idly by. Just you alone? Zhuowen, don't be impulsive. You should know that other than the Wang family, even the Chen family is involved. They have far more people than us. Can you handle it alone? Zhuo Rong asked doubtfully. That should be fine. You'd better lead the way quickly. Didn't you say that Xiang and Mei Xue couldn't hold on much longer? If you don't take me there now, it will really be too late. Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Zhuo Rong looked at the dignified young man in front of him, gritted his teeth and said, "Fine. Come with me." After saying that, Zhuo Rong took the lead and dashed towards the city center. Zhuowen followed behind Zhuo Rong unhurriedly. Originally, a group of our family's disciples followed Xiang to the city center's trade fair to have fun and buy some handy weapons along the way. But we didn't expect to encounter the aggressive Wang family. Their leader, Wang Zheng, didn't even give us a chance to explain. He kept targeting our Zhuo family. And the leader of the Chen family was that bitch, Chen Ting. When she saw that the Wang family was targeting our Zhuo family, she added insult to injury. Xiang was so angry that she scolded that bitch. But who would have thought that Chen Ting would act on the spot and slap Xiang? So the Chen family and our Zhuo family started fighting. As for the Wang family, they just stood aside and watched us make fools of ourselves. That Chen Ting is the younger sister of the Chen family's #1 prodigy, Chen Tong. Her strength has reached the middle stage of the soul transformation realm. She was the one who beat me up. The two of them dashed towards the city center's trade fair. Along the way, Zhuo Rong recounted the details of the incident to Zhuo Rong. During the process, Zhuo Rong couldn't help but clench his fists, showing the anger in his heart. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He didn't expect that even the Chen family would be involved. And from Zhuorong's narration, that Chen Ting seemed to be very arrogant. No matter what, Zhuoxiang was still a girl. She actually slapped her in the face. It was obvious that she was deliberately trying to embarrass them. The city center's trade fair was the most luxurious place in the entire Rattan Armor City. There were many shops inside, selling all kinds of things. It was a dazzling lineup. Compared to the prosperity of the trade fair, the market was undoubtedly much simpler. And it was said that the trade fair was founded by the city lord of Rattan Armor City, Guyu Tian. It could be said that the trade fair had a very deep background. This was also why the three big families of Rattan Armor City didn't dare to touch the trade fair even though it was so prosperous. After all, the ones who controlled the entire Rattan Armor City weren't the three big families, but the city lord. In the center of the trade fair was an extremely large square made of broken stones. There were many shops open in the square, but most of the people in the square didn't stop to shop at the goods in these shops. Instead, they all gathered at the empty space in the south of the square. On this empty space, there were three groups of people facing each other. And from the looks of it, the three groups of people weren't very old. It was obvious that they were the younger generation of some family who had a conflict here. This is going to be lively. The younger generation of Rattan Armor City's three big families actually gathered at the trade fair at the same time. And from the looks of it, they don't seem to have good intentions. Look, the younger generation of the Wang family and the Chen family seem to have joined forces. This time, the younger generation of the Zhua family is at a disadvantage. From the discussions around them, one could tell that these three groups of people were actually the juniors of the three most powerful clans in Rattan Armor City. The three clans were huge existences in Rattan Armor City, so the sparring between the juniors was naturally very eye-catching. Chen Ting, don't be too unreasonable. Sister Xiang clearly saw this necklace first, yet you insist on stealing it. Do you have any shame? Zhua Meishua looked at the red mark on Zhua Xiang's face and spoke with a face full of anger. Who do you think you are? With your cultivation at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm, what qualifications do you have to talk to me? Zhua Xiang, I'm telling you, you better give this necklace to me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. At the head of the Chen family's group, a tall girl wearing luxurious clothes stood proudly. There was a bit of disdain on her white oval face and a trace of harshness on her thin lips. This girl was the Chen family's Chen Ting. Seeing the arrogance on Chen Ting's face for no reason, Zhua Meishua's face was also filled with anger. If it wasn't for the fact that Chen Ting's strength far exceeded hers, she would have already pounced on this bitch and slapped her a few times. At this moment, Zhua Xiang pulled Zhua Meishua back. She looked at Chen Ting with a cold gaze and said, Sister Meishua, we're not a match for the Chen family at all. Moreover, there are people from the Wang family eyeing us covetously. It's best for us to take a step back. Zhua Meishua looked at Zhua Xiang with some hesitation. In the end, she nodded and said, all right, you're the strongest, so I'll let you decide. Zhua Xiang expressionlessly threw the necklace to Chen Ting and coldly said, Chen Ting, this necklace is for you. Can you let us go now? Once Chen Ting caught the necklace, the arrogance on her face became even stronger. She coldly snorted and said, wouldn't it have been fine if you had given me the necklace earlier? However, it's too late now. I've already changed my mind. If you want to leave, you'll have to kneel down and kowtow to us a few times before leaving. As soon as Chen Ting said this, the people from the Zhua family immediately became restless. All of the Zhua family members looked angrily at the arrogant Chen Ting. They didn't expect this woman to take a mile after taking an inch. They were originally part of the three major factions of Rattan Armor City. If the Zhua family really did as Chen Ting said and kowtowed to them, then the Zhua family's face would be completely destroyed. At that time, the prestige of the Zhua family would also fall to the bottom. Chen Ting, it looks like you don't plan on letting us go. Although we're weaker than you now, we're not so easily bullied. Zhua Xiang's face also darkened. This Chen Ting in front of her was really too hateful. It was obvious that she was targeting the Zhuo family. Then you're planning on fighting with us? We have 3 soul transformation realm practitioners here, while you only have 1 on your side. Moreover, you're only at the early stage of the soul transformation realm. Do you think you have an advantage in fighting with us? Chen Ting sneered and said with a face full of arrogance. However, when she saw the younger generation of the Zhuo clan glaring at her, her face gradually darkened. She sneered and said, "It seems like you don't intend to do as I say. In that case, I'll have to let you suffer a little. Chen Hui, Chen Xiang, the 2 of you take them down." As soon as Chen Ting said this, 2 robust youths walked out from behind her. From the aura emitted from their bodies, the 2 of them were actually soul transformation realm practitioners. If you obediently follow Big Sister Chen Ting's words, you won't have to suffer. Now, let the 2 of us teach you a good lesson. The 2 of them laughed mischievously. Then, dense energy suddenly spread throughout their bodies. Filling the entire body with energy was the sign of a soul transformation realm practitioner. Then, the 2 of them bounced off their legs and instantly turned into 2 illusory shadows that shot towards the Zhuo family's Zhuo Xiang, and Zhuo Meishue. Looking at the 2 people flying towards them, Zhuo Xiang, and Zhuo Meishue's faces were very serious. Just as the 2 of them were about to urge their energy to fight, 2 palm-sized rocks suddenly shot towards them from behind. Whoosh whoosh! The 2 rocks accurately shot into the 2 Chen family members who had turned into shadows. Then, 2 muffled groans were heard. Then, the 2 of them, Chen Hui and Chen Xiang, who were flying towards them, actually retreated a dozen or so steps in front of everyone's eyes. Who is it? Chen Ting's face was unsightly as she looked behind Zhuo Xiang, and Zhuo Meishue. Her pair of beautiful eyes suddenly narrowed into a dangerous arc. Following Chen Ting's words, everyone's gazes converged behind Zhuo Xiang, and Zhuo Meishue. At this moment, 2 youthful figures slowly appeared behind the 2 women. Zhuo Xiang, and Zhuo Meishue were no exception as they turned their heads to look. When they saw Zhuowen's slightly delicate and handsome face, they couldn't help but reveal a trace of relaxed smile. Chapter 60. 2 slaps Zhuowen. Zhuo Meishue and Zhuo Xiang couldn't help but cry out in surprise as they looked at the tall figure slowly walking towards them. Zhuowen? You're the Zhuowen that's been the talk of the town in Rotan Armor City recently. Chen Ting's gaze swept over Zhuowen as she curled her lips and said. Following the appearance of Zhuowen, the Wang family troops who had been standing nearby suddenly became restless. Their leader, Wang Zheng, stared at Zhuowen with a somewhat malicious gaze as the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a sinister smile. Are you all right? Zhuowen didn't pay any attention to the arrogant Chen Ting. Instead, he frowned slightly as his gaze locked onto the obvious red mark on Zhuo Xiang's right cheek. His gaze also became increasingly gloomy. I'm fine, it's just a light injury. Zhuo Xiang covered her right cheek as she spoke with a somewhat complicated gaze. Zhuo Rong, why didn't you return to your family to ask for reinforcements? Instead, you followed Zhuowen here. Zhuo Meishue turned her head and looked at Zhuo Rong somewhat reproachfully as she spoke. Although Zhuowen's appearance was a pleasant surprise to Zhuo Meishue, and although she greatly admired Zhuowen's strength, the Chen family had the advantage in numbers. Furthermore, there were also the ill-intentioned Wang family troops on the side. She didn't believe that Zhuowen could contend against so many people by himself. Zhuowen said with a bitter smile, Zhuowen said that he alone was enough. At that time, I was also anxious, so I didn't think too much about it and brought Zhuowen here. Why don't you use your brain to think? Even if Zhuowen's strength is very strong, it's still difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. How can Zhuowen deal with so many people by himself? Moreover, the Chen family has 4 soul transformation stage practitioners. Zhuo Meishue was a little flustered and immediately scolded Zhuo Rong to his face. However, Zhuo Rong was submissive and didn't dare to reply. Zhuowen's selective disregard also infuriated the arrogant Chen Ting. This was the first time she felt like she was being treated like air. At the same time, the people beside her whispered something into her ear. Pfft, I was wondering who it was to actually be so arrogant. So it's just a bastard from the Zhou family. A bastard like you still have the face to be arrogant in front of this lady? Zhuo Wen's body also paused after Chen Ting's words sounded. After which, he turned around and placed his gaze on Chen Ting's face for the first time. The corners of his eyes narrowed into a dangerous arc as he took a step forward and rushed towards Chen Ting. Zhuo Xiang and Zhuo Meishue could also feel the evil aura erupting from Zhuo Wen's body. They hurriedly said in unison, Zhuowen, don't be impulsive. The opponent has 4 soul transformation stage practitioners. You'll be at a disadvantage if you go up alone. Seeing Zhuowen actually rushing over, a trace of coldness appeared in Chen Ting's beautiful eyes. She immediately shouted, Chen Hui, Chen Xiang, take down this brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. In a moment, this lady will make him kneel on the ground and lick my shoes. We also want to see if the Zhuo family's genius who recently rose to fame in Rattan Armor City lives up to his name. Chen Hui and Chen Xiang, who were called out, also cracked the corners of their mouths. Their footsteps crisscrossed, and with great tacit understanding, they immediately surrounded Zhuowen from both sides. The origin energy on their bodies surged out like waves. Bang! 2 muffled groans rang out. Everyone was stunned to see the originally aggressive Chen Hui and Chen Xiang actually fly backwards like dead dogs. Looking at the unconscious Chen Hui and Chen Xiang on the ground, the surrounding crowd was stunned. It seemed that the Zhuo family's genius, Zhuowen, who had recently become the talk of the town, wasn't a silver spear but a candle head. He was truly capable. You dare hit our Chen family's people? You're simply courting death. When the other Chen family disciple, whose cultivation was at the soul transformation realm, saw that Chen Hui and Chen Xiang were both defeated by Zhuo Wen, his face revealed a furious expression. He took a step forward, and his entire body was instantly surrounded by origin energy. Hey! You're the ones courting death. Zhuowen grinned. Immediately after, his entire body was also filled with rich origin energy. He unceremoniously sent this Chen family disciple flying with a slap. Naturally, this pitiful Chen family disciple's fate was no different from Chen Hui and Chen Xiang's. Hiss, looking at the merciless Zhuowen, many people sucked in a breath of cold air. Zhuowen's ruthless methods caused many people to feel a chill in their hearts. Soul transformation stage? Zhuo Xiang and Zhuo Meishue both stared blankly at Zhuowen's back. They clearly remembered that Zhuowen was only at the early stage of the spirit detecting stage a few days ago. Now, he had actually reached the soul transformation stage. Although Zhuo Xiang had also reached the soul transformation stage a few days ago, her cultivation was already at the peak of the spirit detecting stage, so it was normal for her to advance in a few days. However, Zhuowen had reached the soul transformation stage from the early stage of the spirit detecting stage in just a few days. This kind of talent was a bit too terrifying. You dare to touch me? If you touch me, our Chen clan will definitely make you suffer the consequences. You better think it through carefully. Looking at Chen Hui's group of 3 being dealt with in a few moves, Chen Ting's face couldn't help but turn pale. However, she was extremely arrogant. Although she was a bit shocked, she still raised her head and coldly looked at Zhuowen. She didn't believe that Zhuowen would dare to touch her. Originally, I would disdain to touch trash like you, but you shouldn't have talked about my parents. Since you did, then you should be prepared to be beaten. Zhuowen grinned. Looking at the arrogant expression on that fair face, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Stop! A cold voice suddenly rang out, causing Zhuowen's raised hand to pause. However, it was only a pause. Paw! Zhuowen's eyes darkened. His hand directly swung down and ruthlessly slapped Chen Ting's face under everyone's gazes. The loud slap immediately silenced the surroundings. After this somewhat oppressive silence, a somewhat hysterical voice suddenly rang out. You dare to hit me, you actually dare to hit me. A clear palm print immediately appeared on Chen Ting's fair face. At this moment, she only felt a burning pain on her face. This was the first time she had been slapped in front of everyone. At this moment, Chen Ting's expression instantly became somewhat sinister. Her eyes were filled with hatred as she stared at Zhuowen. You have to pay a price for speaking without thinking. Zhuowen ignored the hatred on Chen Ting's face and said indifferently. Who do you think you are? You actually dare to teach me a lesson? Chen Ting was flustered and exasperated. Yuan power immediately surged in her jade-like hand. With a swoosh, she was about to slap Zhuowen's face. This man was really too hateful. She must get back at him. Looks like you haven't learned your lesson. Zhuowen slightly raised his hand and very casually caught Chen Ting's jade-like hand. Then, he turned his hand and ruthlessly slapped Chen Ting's left cheek. Paw! The crisp sound once again silenced the scene. Everyone stared in disbelief at Zhuowen, who had consecutively slapped Chen Ting twice. Then, a trace of a strange expression surfaced in many people's eyes. Although Chen Ting was very annoying, she was at least considered a delicate beauty. As long as one was a man, they should not have the heart to hit such a beauty. However, not only did Zhuowen hit her, he even hit her twice. Moreover, he did it without the slightest hesitation. This involuntarily caused many people to look at Zhuowen a few more times. Ruthless, decisive. There were even some people who secretly evaluated this new rising genius of the Zhuo family. Chen Ting, who had been slapped twice, was also stunned. She actually stared blankly at Zhuowen, not knowing what to say. Traces of mist continuously swirled in her eyes. Then, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, she began to bawl loudly. Looking at the bawling Chen Ting, Zhuo Meishue and Zhuo Xiang could not help but feel a trace of pleasure in their hearts. This girl had always had an arrogant expression. Moreover, she had always targeted the Zhuo family. These two slaps from Zhuo Meishue were very satisfying. Swoosh! At this moment, a piercing sound of wind breaking came from behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen's gaze focused and his right palm suddenly slapped out. Bang! An intense fluctuation of elemental energy swept out like a hurricane. Then, Zhuowen only felt a somewhat powerful force coming from behind him. Under this force, even Zhuowen could not help but take a few steps back. Turning his head to look, he saw a young lady dressed in luxurious clothes looking at him with a somewhat surprised gaze. Moreover, this young lady's appearance was somewhat similar to Chen Ting's. Presumably, this young lady should be the most dazzling genius of the Chen family, Chen Tong. Sister. When Chen Ting, who was originally bawling loudly, saw the appearance of this lady, her face immediately revealed a joyful expression. She immediately dodged Zhuowen's body and flew into Chen Tong's embrace. Who hit you? Chen Tong caressed the two red palm prints on Chen Ting's cheeks. Her gaze revealed a trace of anger. She also did not expect that with their Chen family's background, there would actually be someone who dared to touch the land above their heads. Sister, you have to take revenge for me. It's this guy who hit me. This guy is that Zhuowen who has been the talk of the town in Rattan Armor City recently. Chen Ting wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. Her jade-like hand suddenly pointed at Zhuowen, and her eyes were even more filled with hatred. So you're Zhuowen. However, as a man, you actually hit a woman. Aren't you ashamed? Moreover, what you shouldn't have done was hit Ting. You have to know that your impulsive actions sometimes bring about great losses to your family. Chen Tong's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as she sized up Zhuowen with a cold gaze. Actually, I have never hit a woman. However, some people are simply too despicable. I have no choice but to make an exception this time. Don't tell me you have a problem with me hitting a despicable person. Moreover, this despicable person bullied our Zhuo family first. There's nothing wrong with me hitting her, right? Zhuowen retorted without any fear. Although the Chen family's influence was enormous, their Zhuo family was not any weaker than the Chen family. Moreover, from the exchange of blows earlier, Zhuowen had discovered that Chen Tong's cultivation was roughly at the peak of the Nirvana realm. Therefore, Zhuowen was not afraid of Chen Tong's threat at all. Once Zhuowen's words came out, it instantly caused an uproar in the surroundings. No one thought that not only was Zhuowen merciless, but he was also merciless with his words. When Chen Tong heard this, her expression immediately changed greatly. Just as she was about to attack and teach this arrogant young man a lesson, a somewhat rough voice suddenly came from nearby. I never thought that this place would be so lively. I am truly lucky to have come across such a lively matter. Chapter 61. Wang Meng, Wang Meng. Numerous exclamations erupted from the crowd. Following which, quite a number of people consciously opened up a path for this extremely muscular figure to slowly walk over. Wang Meng's body was extremely sturdy. He was almost a head taller than Zhuowen. Traces of arrogance leaked out from his resolute face. Looking at this somewhat arrogant figure, Zhuowen could not help but narrow his eyes. He knew that this should be Wang Meng, the rumored #1 person among the younger generation of the Wang family in Rattan Armor City. Moreover, from the surrounding discussions, Zhuowen could also tell that Wang Meng was extremely talented. It was difficult to find a match among the younger generation of the three big families. Zhuowen, you have to be careful of this Wang Meng. I heard that this person advanced to the Void stage a few days ago. He is extremely powerful. It seems that he did not come here with good intentions. Unknowingly, Zhuo Meishue came to Zhuowen's side and introduced Wang Meng in a low voice. Hearing Zhuo Meishue's introduction, Zhuowen's eyes could not help but turn serious. He did not expect that Wang Meng, who was about the same age as Zhuo Tian, was far more powerful than the latter. It seemed that the Wang family's position as the #1 family was not baseless. Big brother, you are finally here. Wang Zheng, who had been standing at the side, was pleasantly surprised. He waved his hand at Wang Meng. Wang Meng nodded and calmly walked over to where the Wang family was. As soon as Wang Meng arrived, Wang Zheng whispered in his ear. During this time, his cold eyes occasionally glanced at Zhuowen's side. Wang Zheng was probably talking about how he was defeated by Zhuowen. Moreover, looking at Wang Meng's increasingly cold eyes, Zhuowen knew that Wang Zheng must have added a lot of details to the original incident. Although Wang Meng's strength of the Void stage made Zhuowen very wary, Zhuowen keenly felt that Wang Meng's strength was not much stronger than Lu Yuan's. If they were to go all out, Zhuowen was not afraid of Wang Meng at all. Therefore, when he saw Wang Meng's malicious gaze, Zhuowen did not pay much attention to it. Wang Meng, how come you have time to come to the trade fair today? Aren't you already in secluded cultivation? Chen Tong's beautiful eyes looked at the tall Wang Meng with some fear. Her face was slightly unnatural as she spoke. Little sister Tong is right. Originally, I wanted to go into closed-door cultivation. However, I heard that my little brother was beaten up. Thus, I had no choice but to come out and help my little brother get back at him, Wang Meng said with a chuckle. Wang Zheng was beaten up. If I'm not wrong, Wang Zheng's strength has already reached the middle stage of the soul transformation realm. In the entire Rattan Armor City, he is considered a top talent. Moreover, your Wang family is very powerful. Who has the strength and courage to beat Wang Zheng? Chen Tong looked at Wang Meng and Wang Zheng with a strange gaze. She covered her face and laughed. This person is very bold, isn't he? You should know this person. He is the Zhuo family's kid, Zhuowen, who slapped your sister in front of everyone. At this point, Wang Meng's cold gaze suddenly locked onto a young figure at the head of the Zhuo family. His lips curled into a sinister arc as he said, I was right, wasn't I, Zhuo family's lad? Wang Meng's words caused an uproar. Everyone's gazes were stunned as they locked onto the young leader of the Zhuo family's group. They didn't think that Zhuowen would be so bold. Not only did he slap the Chen family's Chen Ting in front of everyone, he even beat up the Wang family's Wang Zheng. These two shocking things in the eyes of outsiders were actually done by the recently risen Zhuo family's genius. Chen Tong couldn't help but be startled. Her beautiful eyes looked strangely at the figure not far away. She didn't think that the guy in front of her would even beat up the Wang family's Wang Zheng. She had to admit that this kid was really arrogant. Hee, I didn't hit you for no reason. It was your people who provoked me first. Can't I defend myself? Zhuowen looked directly at Wang Meng's beast-like eyes without fear. The corners of his mouth twitched as he spoke in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. To you, it might be self-defense, but to me, it's because you hit my younger brother. Since you hit my younger brother, I have to get back at you for my younger brother. So, no matter how you defend yourself, you will have to suffer my anger today. Or are you afraid? Wang Meng took a step forward, and a surge of elemental energy erupted from his body. Everyone was shocked to find that the ground beneath Wang Meng's feet actually cracked like tofu due to his powerful strength. What made everyone even more shocked was that there was a faint chilly aura emanating from Wang Meng's body. This chilly aura spread from his feet to the ground and froze the cracked ground into ice. Void Realm? Looking at the chilly aura emanating from Wang Meng's body, everyone couldn't help but exclaim. Their faces were full of disbelief. Wang Meng was only 20 years old, but he had already reached the Void Realm. This kind of talent really moved many people. Even Chen Tong looked at the chilly aura emanating from Wang Meng's body with deep fear in her beautiful eyes. Although her cultivation had reached the peak of the Nirvana realm and was only one step away from the Void Realm, she clearly knew that it was not that easy to advance to the Void Realm. Wang Meng had entered the Void Realm one step ahead of her, which made her feel very complicated. Void Realm? Zhuowen, you are no match for Wang Meng. You'd better not accept his challenge. This guy is obviously bullying you because his cultivation is higher than yours. Looking at the powerful Yuan power and chilly aura emanating from Wang Meng's body, Zhuo Meishue and Zhuo Xiang's pretty faces turned pale. Zhuo Xiang even grabbed Zhuowen's arm, trying to stop this battle that had no suspense. Zhuowen, you have good luck with women, don't you? In fact, I am a reasonable person. If you are afraid, you don't have to fight with me. As long as you kneel down and bark like a dog, and then apologize to my brother, Wang Zheng, I will generously let this matter pass. How about it? Wang Meng smiled and stared at the young man not far away with a teasing gaze. If you kneel down and bark like a dog, and lick the soles of my shoes, maybe I won't care about your rude remarks. What do you think of my proposal? Zhuowen looked coldly at Wang Meng, whose face was full of ridicule, and retorted sarcastically. Zhuowen's words stunned everyone once more. They didn't think that Zhuowen would still recklessly spout such nonsense even though he clearly knew that Wang Meng's cultivation was much higher than his. They didn't know if they should say that this young man was truly courageous or just reckless. This guy has some character, but he is too arrogant. When Wang Meng blows him up, maybe this guy will restrain his arrogance. Chen Tong's beautiful eyes stared blankly at Zhuowen's back. She did not expect Zhuowen to give such an answer, but soon she shook her head and laughed. She thought that Zhuowen was too arrogant. Now, in her opinion, Zhuowen was at most a brute with courage but no brains. Sure enough, Zhuowen's words made Wang Meng's face darken. Good, you have guts and are arrogant enough. However, people like you who have no strength but are arrogant usually do not live long. Now, let me see where you get the confidence to challenge me. Wang Meng was so angry that he laughed. His legs suddenly bounced and his entire body flew towards Zhuowen like an arrow released from a bow. His large fists also flew towards Zhuowen, and the surface of his body was constantly surrounded by Yuan power and cold air, making him look very majestic. Zhuowen's eyes focused. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, he did not dodge. Instead, he raised his head and the blood veins on his arms suddenly burst open. The 8-dragon strength in his body also surged out. First sky of rampage. Then, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Zhuowen's fists were like 2 dragons swallowing a pearl. His powerful physical strength combined with the surging Yuan power in his body caused a violent hurricane to appear when he punched. Boom! When the two collided, the surging waves of energy rippled out in all directions like raging waves. Even the ground began to crack like a spider web because of the powerful strength of the two. Thick smoke and dust also swept out between the two. Some people who were not strong enough could not help but retreat under the aftermath of the airwaves. Some of the weaker ones even spat out a mouthful of blood. Obviously, they had suffered serious internal injuries. Bang! 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 A muffled groan sounded. Then, everyone saw a figure holding his chest and retreating 7 to 8 steps back in the smoke and dust. There was even a dent under his feet that was so deep that it reached his heel. When everyone saw the true appearance of this figure, their faces simultaneously revealed expressions of as expected. This figure was none other than Zhuo Wen, whom everyone did not think highly of. It seems that the gap between the soul transformation stage and the Yin Void stage is too big. This Zhuo family's kid is indeed not Wang Meng's opponent. Actually, this Zhuo family's kid is quite amazing. After all, Zhuowen is only about 15 years old. At this age, he has the strength to defeat Wang Zheng. If he is the same age as Wang Meng, his cultivation might not necessarily be worse than Wang Meng's. He might even be better. Just as the crowd was discussing spiritedly, the smoke and dust in the field receded like a tide, revealing Wang Meng's sturdy figure. When Wang Meng's figure completely appeared in front of everyone, it immediately caused everyone to be shocked. Everyone looked at Wang Meng's sturdy figure in the field in disbelief. Wang Meng stood proudly like a pine tree. However, there was a trace of cherry red on Wang Meng's steel-like right fist. Chapter 62. Chapter 62 Master Karaki Wang Meng is injured. Everyone stared in disbelief at the dark red blood dripping from Wang Meng's right fist. Many people rubbed their eyes. When they confirmed that what they saw was not an illusion, the shock on their faces became even more intense. They didn't expect Zhuowen, who was only at the soul transformation realm, to be able to injure Wang Meng, who was at the Yin Void realm. Although Wang Meng's right fist only had a superficial wound, the gap between their cultivations was like a chasm. It was already an amazing fact that Zhuowen could injure a warrior of the Yin Void realm with his soul transformation realm cultivation. How did this guy do it? Chintong whose face was originally filled with ridicule, was also startled at this moment. The playful smile on her face also froze as she looked at the young figure in the arena with a stunned expression. When Wang Zheng, whose eyes were filled with a dark and stern expression, saw the bloodstains on Wang Meng's hand, he involuntarily became absent-minded. Clearly, he did not expect that his big brother, whom he had always worshipped, would actually be injured by a mere Zhuowen. This kind of impact caused Wang Zheng to be momentarily stunned. Compared to the shock of the bystanders, the Zhuo family suddenly erupted into cheers. Then, the younger generation of the Zhuo family looked at the young figure in the middle of the field with adoration. They couldn't help but shout the young figure's name. Zhuowen's actions were clearly to protect the reputation of the Zhuo family. Furthermore, the terrifying strength he had displayed had also caused the younger members of the Zhuo family to feel a strange sense of belonging towards this young man. Good. Zhuowen, you really surprised me. You were actually able to break through my defense and injure me. However, you won't get lucky a second time. This time, I won't underestimate you. I will use all my strength to cripple you. Looking at the bloodstains on his fist, Wang Meng's gaze turned even colder. The corners of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. Following which, an intense chill erupted from his body, causing the surrounding temperature to plummet. At this moment, Zhuowen's gaze had also turned extremely solemn. During the previous exchange, Zhuowen was at an absolute disadvantage. Moreover, Zhuowen could sense that Wang Meng's strength was even greater than Lu Yuan's. Wang Meng actually had the qualifications to condense the void armor. Zhuowen, die! Wang Meng's legs suddenly bounced, and an endless amount of cold Yin energy erupted from his body. Then, the cold Yin energy transformed into a bone-chilling cold current, and Wang Meng charged at Zhuowen with the cold current in tow. Feeling the ferocious power of the cold current that Wang Meng had released, many people's expressions changed drastically. The power that Wang Meng was currently displaying was much stronger than before. Quite a number of people's gazes gathered on the tall and straight young figure. They knew that Wang Meng's ordinary punch had already caused this figure to appear somewhat miserable. They wondered if this figure would be able to successfully receive the terrifying destructive power of this all-out attack. Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen's gaze turned solemn as he looked at the cold current that was shooting towards him. He knew that he had to go all out at this moment. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to withstand Wang Meng's attack. Just as Zhuowen was about to use all of his trump cards, Zhuowen suddenly felt a terrifying fluctuation rushing towards him from not far away. Then, Zhuowen was shocked to discover that a golden stone platform that was several feet in size had appeared not far above him. The golden stone platform was like a small mountain in front of Zhuowen. Then, Wang Meng's extremely frightening cold current completely poured onto the golden stone platform. However, what shocked Zhuowen was that the cold current that even Zhuowen himself didn't have confidence in was easily blocked by the golden stone platform. Who is it? How dare you obstruct our Wang clan's business? The corners of Wang Meng's eyes twitched when he saw that his attack had been completely blocked. His gaze also turned gloomy. Humph! What a great Wang clan! Didn't your parents tell you that fighting is prohibited in the trade fair? If it weren't for the fact that you are all of the younger generation, I don't care if you are from the Wang clan or the Qin clan. A somewhat fiery voice sounded out. Then, everyone's gaze converged on the figure at the source of the voice. It was a rather well-built old man with white hair at his temples. However, what surprised everyone was that the old man's face was rosy and extremely elastic like a child's. Grandmaster Tsangmu. I didn't think that the commotion here would even draw out Grandmaster Tsangmu. Grandmaster Tsangmu is a highly respected arcana master. Even the city lord doesn't dare to slight him. However, Grandmaster Tsangmu usually doesn't care about the affairs of the trade fair. It's a little strange that he has personally come out today. Numerous discussions also sounded out of nowhere. From these discussions, Zhuowen also knew that the identity of this white-haired, youthful-looking old man who had just appeared should not be ordinary. Zhuowen, Grandmaster Tsangmu is the only arcana master in our Rattan Armor City. His status is extremely respected. Even the city lord, Guyu Tian, doesn't dare to slight him in the slightest when he sees him. The trade fair was specially built by the city lord's residence for Grandmaster Tsangmu. As if she could see the confusion on Zhuowen's face, Zhuo Meishue dutifully began to introduce Grandmaster Tsangmu's background to Zhuowen. Arcana Master. Zhuowen was stunned. Then, his gaze towards the old man in front of him had a different charm. One must know that in the Heavenly Armor continent, Arcana Masters were a symbol of status and nobility. Their status was extremely high. The main reason why Arcana Masters had such a high status was because Arcana Masters had the ability to create special origin crystals and refine origin formations. Special origin crystals had all sorts of uses. For example, a high-grade attack origin crystal could rival a powerful warrior's full-strength attack. A high-grade defense origin crystal could block a powerful warrior's attack. Apart from these, there were also other powerful origin crystals. If a weak person had a powerful origin crystal, they could rely on the power of the origin crystal to not fear any strong person. Of course, the more powerful the origin crystal, the higher its value. If one didn't have enough resources, they wouldn't be able to afford these origin crystals. The reason why Arcana Masters were so respected was ultimately because of their rarity. This was because the conditions to become an Arcana Master were extremely harsh. Out of 10,000 people, there might not even be one who had the talent to become an Arcana Master. It was precisely because of their rarity that the status of Arcana Masters was infinitely elevated. So it's Grandmaster Tsangmu. Please forgive me for offending you earlier. Looking at the white-haired old man in front of him, Wang Meng's pupils couldn't help but shrink. Then, he smiled and cupped his hands together, but a trace of sweat appeared on his face. After all, even the patriarch of the Wang clan didn't dare to slight this old man in front of him. Wang Meng was only a junior of the Wang clan, so he naturally didn't dare to be impudent in front of such a person. Grandmaster Tsangmu didn't seem to notice Wang Meng at all. Instead, he stared straight at Zhuowen. Under Grandmaster Tsangmu's gaze, Zhuowen felt a little uncomfortable. Grandmaster Tsangmu, my father has always wanted to invite Grandmaster to a gathering in the clan. Would Grandmaster Tsangmu do me the honor of visiting our Wang clan? Wang Meng no longer had his initial arrogance and ruthlessness. Instead, he was as respectful as a newborn calf, as if he was afraid that he would do something wrong. Seeing Wang Meng's change in attitude, the surrounding people didn't reveal any strange expressions. This was because Wang Meng was treating a respected arcana master. Even if it were someone else, their attitude would be even more flattering than Wang Meng's. Wang clan. I'm not interested. Also, tell your old man to stop worrying. If he wants me to refine a grade 3 crystal for him, he will have to pay the corresponding price. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about. Grandmaster Tsangmu impatiently waved his hand and said irritably. Grandmaster Tsangmu's impatient attitude didn't cause the hot-tempered Wang Meng to reveal any strange expression. Instead, he revealed an even more respectful expression. He bowed and said, Wang Meng will convey Grandmaster's words. I only hope that Grandmaster will reconsider the matter from last time. Are you done? If you're done, then scram. Don't bother me. Grandmaster Tsangmu glared at Wang Meng with a very bad attitude. However, Grandmaster Tsangmu's bad attitude didn't make Wang Meng angry at all. Instead, it made Wang Meng laugh. Zhuowen was a little surprised as he looked at Wang Meng, who wasn't angry at all. He didn't expect the hot-tempered Wang Meng to be so restrained in front of Grandmaster Tsangmu. After Grandmaster Tsangmu finished speaking, he ignored Wang Meng, who was laughing at the side. Instead, he took a step forward and stood in front of Zhuowen. A pair of shrewd eyes began to size up Zhuowen, and a trace of hesitation appeared between his eyebrows. While Grandmaster Tsangmu was sizing up Zhuowen, Zhuowen could feel a strange energy constantly scanning his body, as if it was searching for something. Although Zhuowen was a little angry at Grandmaster Tsangmu's probing, he didn't dare to show it. This was because he could feel an extremely powerful energy from Grandmaster Tsangmu's body. This energy was even stronger than his grandfather, Zhuoxiangding. Grandmaster Tsangmu's actions also attracted the attention of everyone present. When they saw Grandmaster Tsangmu sizing up Zhuowen, everyone's eyes revealed a trace of astonishment. When Wang Meng, who had been deliberately trying to curry favor with Grandmaster Tsangmu, saw that Grandmaster Tsangmu was actually interested in Zhuowen, he couldn't help but frown slightly. Kid, the fluctuation of your soul is very strange. This is the first time I've seen something like this. Moreover, your mental strength is much stronger than ordinary people. You have a trace of the potential to become an arcanist. I wonder if you're willing to take the mental strength test. If you pass the mental strength test, this old man can accept you as a disciple. Even if you don't pass the test, this old man will still give you a second-grade crystal as compensation. What do you think? Grandmaster Tsangmu rubbed his hands and looked at the young man in front of him with a hopeful gaze. One must know that people with the potential to become an arcanist were 1 in a million. Now that he finally met one, he naturally wouldn't let it go so easily. Chapter 63. High mental energy. Grandmaster Karaki's words reverberated in everyone's hearts like thunder. When everyone saw the serious expression on Grandmaster Karaki's face, they knew that Grandmaster Karaki was not joking. Looking at the hopeful expression on Grandmaster Karaki's face, Zhuowen could feel the sincerity in the depths of the old man's eyes. Grandmaster Karaki had also said that even if he failed the test, he would give Zhuowen a Tier 2 Yuan crystal. This was a win-win situation, so Zhuowen was happy to agree. Moreover, from the discussions around him, Grandmaster Karaki, who had a somewhat eccentric temperament, usually did not care about the trivial matters of the bazaar. However, he had unexpectedly intervened today. When Zhuowen thought about how this old man had helped him block Wang Meng's attack, it was obvious that this old man's appearance was because of Zhuowen. This junior is willing, but may I know how senior would like to test my mental energy? In front of this esteemed Grandmaster Karaki, Zhuowen did not have the slightest bit of arrogance. Instead, he respectfully replied. Zhuowen's respectful attitude greatly improved Grandmaster Karaki's impression of him. He stroked his white beard and suddenly took out a palm-sized crystal ball from the Qianquan bag at his waist. The crystal ball was crystal clear, as if it was transparent. What was even more surprising was that there was actually a thin line of lightning within the crystal ball. If one did not look carefully, this lightning would not be easily seen. As long as you place your palm on this crystal ball and activate the mental energy in your sea of consciousness, this old man will judge whether your mental energy meets the requirements. Grandmaster Karaki narrowed his eyes and said with a faint smile. Zhuowen looked suspiciously at the crystal ball in Grandmaster Karaki's hand. He did not expect this small crystal ball to be able to test the strength of a person's mental energy. Although he was somewhat suspicious, Zhuowen still did as Grandmaster Karaki said. He placed his hand on the crystal ball and silently activated the mental energy in his sea of consciousness. During the process of Zhuowen's test, everyone's eyes were focused on Zhuowen. Many people even held their breaths and stared unblinkingly at the changes in the crystal ball. After all, this test would determine whether their Rattan armor city could produce another Arcanist. The mystery and rarity of Arcanists was well known. Their small Rattan armor city could be considered lucky to have an Arcanist like Grandmaster Karaki. One had to know that there were many small cities like Rattan armor city in the Qingxian Empire that did not have a single Arcanist. If another Arcanist were to appear now, it would undoubtedly be something to be proud of for Rattan armor city. Zhuo Xiang, Zhuo Meishue, and the other Zhuo family members standing behind Zhuowen were all brimming with excitement and joy. If Zhuowen really had the potential to become an Arcanist, then their Zhuo family's status in Rattan armor city would undoubtedly rise to another level. In contrast to the excitement and joy of the younger generation of the Zhuo family, the Chen and Wang families were a little gloomy. After all, these two families had just had a conflict with Zhuowen. If Zhuowen really could become an Arcanist, it would not bode well for their families. The conditions to become an Arcanist are extremely harsh. Although Grandmaster Karaki said that this child has the potential to become an Arcanist, it's still only a probability. I'm afraid that this child will be embarrassed if his spiritual force fails the test. Wang Meng stared at Zhuowen's back with a displeased expression. Back then, he had also undergone Grandmaster Karaki's spiritual force test under his father's guidance. However, the final result was a merciless failure. Wang Meng, who had personally experienced the test, knew how difficult it was to pass the test with spiritual force. Just as everyone's gazes converged on the crystal ball in Grandmaster Karaki's hand, the crystal ball began to change. The thread-like lightning within the crystal ball began to twist and turn, like a struggling water snake. This lightning bolt quickly became thicker in front of everyone's eyes. It was as if a swimming snake had grown into a thick and powerful python in an instant. Grandmaster Karaki's eyes suddenly burst with light as he looked at the thicker lightning in the crystal ball. If one looked closely, they would be able to see a trace of joy in the depths of his eyes. Rumble. Suddenly, a flash of light flashed within the crystal ball. Following that, a loud rumble of thunder erupted within the crystal ball. As the thunder rumbled, the lightning within the crystal ball instantly split into countless lightning bolts that spread throughout the entire crystal ball. Spiritual force, advanced. This old man was right. You do have the qualifications to become an Arcanist. Moreover, your initial spiritual force is advanced. This shows that you have a good aptitude. Grandmaster Karaki laughed heartily as he looked at the countless lightning bolts that were densely distributed in the crystal ball. Oh my god! It's actually advanced spiritual force. This Zhuowen's spiritual force is so powerful. It seems that there's no doubt that he will become an Arcanist. No wonder Grandmaster Karaki let this child test his spiritual force. It turns out that this child has talent in this area. Once this child becomes an Arcanist, the Zhuo family's influence will definitely reach a new level. It seems that I'll have to build a good relationship with the Zhuo family. A family with an Arcanist has a bright future. Grandmaster Karaki's voice wasn't loud, but everyone present heard it clearly. They knew that Zhuowen's spiritual force had reached the standard. Moreover, from Grandmaster Karaki's happy expression, it seemed that Zhuowen's aptitude was extremely outstanding. Everyone exclaimed when they heard this news. Zhuowen actually has the aptitude to become an arcanist. This is a great fortune for our Zhuo family. Zhuo Xiang and Zhuo Meishue looked at each other and saw a trace of surprise in each other's eyes. They didn't expect Zhuowen's spiritual force to reach the standard. Thump. Wang Zheng looked at the crystal ball in Grandmaster Karaki's hand, which was overflowing with lightning. His face suddenly became extremely pale. Even he didn't expect Zhuowen to pass the spiritual force test. Big brother, what should we do now? Wang Zheng couldn't help but look at Wang Meng, who was beside him, and asked with a trembling voice. Wang Meng's expression didn't look any better. He curled his lips and said, "Humph. This guy is really lucky. But after all, this kid hasn't become an arcanist yet. With our Wang family's power, this kid won't dare to touch us." Hearing Wang Meng's words, Wang Zheng's panicked heart gradually calmed down. At the same time, he looked at Zhuowen's back with some fear. "Huh. Kid, are you willing to take this old man as your master? Although this old man is only a level 3 arcanist, it's more than enough to guide you through the door." Grandmaster Karaki looked at Zhuowen with a smile and said. Looking at Grandmaster Karaki's face, which had suddenly become much more amiable, Zhuowen's face revealed a trace of hesitation. The fact that his spiritual force had reached a high level was also beyond his expectations. For a moment, Zhuowen was stunned. "Kid, do you feel wrong to take this old man as your master? Why do you look so hesitant? You should know that being an arcanist is a symbol of nobility. Once you become an arcanist, you will have corresponding privileges in the Qing Xian Empire. This kind of thing is something that others can't even dream of." Seeing Zhuowen's hesitant expression, Grandmaster Karaki was a little anxious. He hurriedly explained the various benefits of being an arcanist in front of Zhuowen. After all, Zhuowen was the first youth that he had met with a high level of spiritual force. Furthermore, Zhuowen's aptitude was quite good. He didn't want to let go of such a disciple. Seeing Grandmaster Karaki's unhappy expression, Zhuowen smiled bitterly and said, "Actually, I'm naturally flattered that Grandmaster Karaki is willing to take me as your disciple. However, the matter of becoming a disciple is of the utmost importance. I still need to ask the elders for their opinion. What do you think?" Hearing this, Grandmaster Karaki's expression eased. He stroked his white beard and said, "Kid, you're right. Since you want to ask for the opinion of your elders, this old man will follow you to your clan. However, someone previously said that he wanted to cripple me. Now that I'm still as good as new, I wonder if that person will let this matter rest." Zhuowen's figure paused. His clear eyes immediately turned to the side and stared indifferently at Wang Meng, who was standing at the head of the Wang clan's group. "Oh? Did someone say that? You're quite bold. You even dared to say that you want to cripple my disciple. Looks like you're deliberately looking down on me." Following Zhuowen's gaze, Karaki also saw the extremely gloomy Wang Meng nearby. The corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile as he spoke. Hearing Karaki's words, the corners of Wang Meng's eyes suddenly twitched. He knew that Karaki was clearly trying to get back at him for his disciple. Even Wang Meng had not expected such an unforeseen event. Originally, with his strength of the Yin Void realm, he could completely cripple Zhuowen in front of everyone. However, Grandmaster Karaki had appeared out of nowhere. What made him even more helpless was that Grandmaster Karaki had also accepted Zhuowen as his disciple. As a result, all of his plans had been ruined. Looking at Karaki's increasingly dangerous smile, Wang Meng knew that he had to do something. Therefore, Wang Meng clenched his teeth and suddenly pulled Wang Zheng's collar. Then, he came in front of Zhuowen and slapped Wang Zheng's face. "Zhuowen, all the mistakes were caused by my younger brother. I hope that you can forgive us this time." While speaking, Wang Meng forcefully pulled Wang Zheng towards Zhuowen and slightly lowered his head. His tone was very sincere. Wang Zheng has already been slapped by me. I have already forgiven this brat. However, your slap just now was quite painful. Don't you want to express your gratitude? The Qianquan bag on your waist is pretty good. Give it to me as compensation. Zhuowen laughed mischievously as he looked at the Qianquan bag on Wang Meng's waist and said. Wang Meng's expression changed. However, under Karaki's increasingly cold gaze, he had no choice but to take off the Qianquan bag and pass it to Zhuowen. Then, he pulled Wang Zheng and was about to leave this place. Wait a minute. Zhuowen's voice rang out again. What else do you want? Wang Meng suppressed his anger and turned around to answer coldly. Also, don't forget your younger brother's Qianquan bag. Give it to me as well. Zhuowen's expression became even more playful as he said indifferently. Humph. Here you go. Wang Meng suddenly pulled off the Qianquan bag on Wang Zheng's waist and threw it to Zhuowen. After that, he left this place without looking back. Chapter 64. An unprecedented battle clang. Deep within the Wang family, in the hall of a luxurious loft, a middle-aged man dressed in lavender robes smashed the tea table in front of him to pieces. Today, when you dealt with Zhuowen, not only did you not gain the upper hand, even your own Qianquan pouch fell into his hands. You even had to apologize to him in front of everyone. Our Wang family's reputation has been lost because of the two of you. The middle-aged man dressed in lavender robes had sharp edges and regular features. He could be considered a handsome man in his youth. This furious middle-aged man was the current head of the Wang family, Wang Yuanqing. Standing in front of Wang Yuanqing were the two brothers, Wang Meng and Wang Zheng, who had just returned from the trade fair. Both of them had a trace of shame on their faces as they lowered their heads, not daring to speak. Father, the original plan was going well. After Zhuowen appeared, I came out from the shadows to teach him a lesson. But I didn't think that Master Karaki would intervene halfway. Wang Meng stared bitterly at Wang Yuanqing. When he saw that his father didn't show any signs of getting angry, he sighed and continued, Master Karaki actually saw that Zhuowen was different from the rest, so he tested his mental strength. The result was that the bastard's mental strength had actually reached an advanced level, so Master Karaki naturally accepted him as his disciple. That's right. If it wasn't for Grandmaster Karaki backing that bastard Zhuowen, Big Brother would have already crippled him. Wang Zheng also nodded his head repeatedly and interrupted from behind. That kid's mental strength has actually reached an advanced level, how unexpected. This kid's talent is extremely high, even higher than yours, Meng. Now that he has the potential to become an arcana master, if he continues to develop, I'm afraid that the Zhuo family's rise will be unstoppable. Wang Yuanqing furrowed his brows. He did not expect Zhuowen to catch the eye of Grandmaster Karaki. This surprised Wang Yuanqing. Father, this child is indeed a threat to our Wang clan. Why don't we secretly? At this point, Wang Meng's hand gently slid across Zhuowen's neck. There was a trace of undisguised killing intent in his eyes. It was obvious that Wang Meng hated Zhuowen to the bone after Zhuowen's repeated provocations. Assassination has its risks. We don't have to take that step yet. Didn't you say that this kid's cultivation is still shallow? Also, in another half a year, it will be the market battle that is held once every 5 years in Vine Armor City. At that time, with your strength, you can completely cripple him in the arena. Wang Yuanqing pondered for a while and then laughed coldly. Hearing this, Wang Meng's face immediately revealed a look of understanding. He cupped his fists and proudly said, Father, don't worry. In the market battle half a year from now, not only will our Wang family win the remaining market properties of the Zhuo family, but the Zhuo family's genius will also have to pay the price in blood. Meng, although your current strength is at the top of the younger generation in Vine Armor City, you can't slack off on your training because of this. You may be the strongest person in the 3 big clans, but there are a few juniors in the mayor's mansion who are similar in age to you and whose cultivation is not weaker than yours. Looking at the proud expression on Wang Meng's face, Wang Yuanqing warned him in time. Mayor's mansion? Hearing this, Wang Meng's pupils immediately shrank. Wang Meng had often heard about the number one force in Rotan Armor City that was above the three major clans from his father. Moreover, his father's tone was filled with fear whenever he mentioned the city lord's residence. Although the city lord's residence was very low-key, the more low-key it was, the more unpredictable it was. Since the mayor's mansion is so powerful, why is it usually so low-key? Even the juniors of the mayor's mansion have never shown themselves. Wang Meng's heart was filled with curiosity about the mayor's mansion. The mayor's mansion has a deeper foundation than our Wang family. Their juniors are all proud and arrogant. Why would they think highly of the other juniors in Vine Armor City? And I heard that the goal of the juniors of the mayor's mansion is the wider world outside of Vine Armor City. It is said that in 3 years, the imperial family of the Qing Xian Empire will hold a competition for the Tower of Vitality that occurs once every 100 years. This competition gathers the geniuses of countless big and small cities in the Qing Xian Empire. If one can stand out in the competition, it is said that they can directly be conferred the title of Marquis and become a governor of a region. I think the juniors of the mayor's mansion are preparing for the competition in 3 years. Wang Yuanxing's voice couldn't help but tremble at this point. Obviously, the Tower of Vitality that he spoke of was definitely a bizarre and extravagant feast. The Tower of Vitality? The person who stands out can directly be conferred the title of Marquis. This is really... Wang Meng clenched his fists, showing the unconcealable excitement in his heart. The position of Marquis in the Qing Xian Empire was very high and his power was also very great. Currently, the Muqin County where Vine Armor City was located was said to be under the control of Marquis Muqin. The city lords in the county all respected Marquis Muqin. To be able to rule such a large county, one could see how great the power of a marquis was. This was also the main reason why many geniuses wanted to participate in the Tower of Vitality like moths to a flame. Meng, you don't have to be too envious. As long as you cultivate well, Father can ask the mayor for a place for you. At that time, you will also be able to participate in the Tower of Vitality. But right now, our first task is to drag down the Zhou family. Wang Yuanxing lightly patted Wang Meng's shoulder and said with a slightly relaxed expression. Father, I will do my best. In the market battle half a year later, I will definitely cripple that brat Zhuowen. In a certain attic of the Zhou family, Zhuo Xiangding was sitting cross-legged in meditation. Suddenly, a slightly hurried knock sounded from the door. Slightly frowning, Zhuo Xiangding said with some displeasure, "Come in." "Master, something big has happened." A gray-clothed old servant panted as he entered the attic and said with a somewhat panicked expression. "Speak slowly, what happened?" "That young Master Zhuowen is back." The gray-clothed old servant spoke with some hesitation. "Why did that brat Zhuowen come back and report to me?" Zhuo Xiangding looked at the old servant with a stern expression. The old servant couldn't help but swallow his saliva. "No, young Master Zhuowen also brought someone, and that person is actually Master Karaki of the trading center." "Isn't it just bringing someone?" "What, you're saying that the person Zhuowen brought with him is Master Karaki?" "Master Karaki, the only Arcana Master in Rotan Armor City?" Originally, Zhuo Xiangding didn't seem to care, but when he heard the words Master Karaki, his eyes suddenly widened and stared straight at the old servant in front of him. "It is indeed Master Karaki." The old servant was also a little disgusted by Zhuo Xiangding's stare, so he hurriedly replied. "Quick, take me to him. I didn't think that Master Karaki would actually come to our Zhuo family. Could it be that brat Zhuowen caused trouble? Is Master Karaki here to ask for an explanation?" "Sigh, Master Karaki's status is very honorable. If Zhuowen really makes him unhappy, our Zhuo family will really suffer." Naturally, Zhuo Xiangding had heard of the famous Master Karaki. Moreover, he had heard that Master Karaki's personality was very eccentric, and his emotions were unpredictable. If Zhuowen really angered Master Karaki, then the Zhuo family would suffer. "Quick, call Baitian and the other elders over. Tell them to gather in the family hall. This matter is really going to be difficult to handle." Zhuo Xiangding instructed the old servant behind him, and then rushed to the family hall in a hurry. In the family hall, Zhuowen and Master Karaki sat opposite each other. Both of them were silently drinking tea. Finally, Master Karaki spoke first. "Brat, your family head is really slow. This old man has a bad temper. If you wait any longer, I might slam the table." Zhuowen looked at Master Karaki indifferently and said, "If you want to slam the table, then slam it. As long as you reimburse in the end, it's fine." When Grandmaster Karaki heard this, his temper immediately flared up. With a bang, he smashed the table beside him into pieces. He kept muttering, "It's not easy for me to find a disciple with aptitude. Why is his personality not to my liking? Sigh, this is fate." While sighing, Master Karaki's movements were very nimble. In a few moments, all the tables and chairs in the hall were smashed into pieces. At this moment, Zhuo Xiangding also hurried to the family hall. When he saw the mess in the hall, his face suddenly became incomparably pale. "It's over." Zhuo Xiangding's heart thumped as he thought to himself. Zhuowen and Master Karaki obviously saw Zhuo Xiangding, who had just arrived. Master Karaki's face suddenly revealed a hint of joy, but when he saw the mess in the hall, his old face couldn't help but blush. In Zhuo Xiangding's eyes, Master Karaki's blush was a sign of extreme anger. His originally suspended heart suddenly trembled. "Master Karaki, what trouble did Zhuowen get into that you actually came to visit him personally? If this kid did something wrong, I hope Master Karaki can be magnanimous and let him go. Whatever compensation you want, our Zhuo family is willing to do our best to satisfy you, as long as you let Zhuowen go." Zhuo Xiangding fiercely glared at Zhuowen, then cupped his hands and said respectfully to Master Karaki. As soon as these words came out, the hall suddenly quieted down. Master Karaki and Zhuowen both looked at Zhuo Xiangding with a strange expression. However, Zhuowen was very smart. When he thought of Master Karaki's noble identity and the mess in the hall, it was obvious that Zhuo Xiangding mistakenly thought that Master Karaki was here to ask for an explanation. Looking at the sincere expression on Zhuo Xiangding's face, Zhuowen couldn't help but feel touched. This old man in front of him obviously cared about him. "Grandfather, things are not what you think. Actually, old man Songmu came here this time to discuss the matter of accepting a disciple with you." Looking at Zhuo Xiangding, who was in fear and trepidation, Zhuowen shook his head and laughed. "Accept a disciple? Zhuowen, you can't deny your mistakes. Master Karaki is someone with a high status. Moreover, there is only 1 in 10,000 people who have the potential to become an arcanist. How could he accept a disciple?" Zhuo Xiangding shook his head and said with a face full of disbelief. "You are the head of the Zhuo family, right?" "Zhuowen is right. I am here to discuss with you about accepting a disciple. Zhuowen has a good aptitude. I want to train him as my successor. You don't have any objections, right?" Master Karaki said with a smile. Thump. Chapter 65. Harvest, there's no doubt about it. This kid's talent is also quite strong. His initial spiritual strength is actually at the high level. If this kid diligently cultivates in the future, it won't be a problem for him to surpass me. Master Karaki laughed. Thump. When Zhuo Xiangding heard that Zhuowen's mental strength had reached the advanced level, his heart trembled again. He knew a little about the classification of mental strength, which was unqualified, qualified, intermediate, advanced, and superior. As long as one's mental strength reached the qualified level, one would be qualified to become an arcanist. The higher the mental strength, the higher one's future achievements would be. Now, Zhuowen's mental strength had reached the advanced level, which was second only to the superior level. He was considered to be extremely talented among arcanists. "Zhuowen, is what Master Karaki said true? Your mental strength has reached the advanced level?" Zhuo Xiangding looked at the quiet figure, his lips trembling slightly as he asked. Zhuowen did not speak, but nodded seriously, admitting that Master Karaki's words were true. Good, good, as expected of this old man's good grandson. It seems that this old man did not misjudge you. Ugh. Zhuo Xiangding's hands trembled slightly, and he could not help but cry. At the same time, Zhuo Baitian rushed to the family hall with the elders after receiving the grey-clothed old servant's notice. When they saw the mess in the hall, their faces changed. However, when they saw Zhuo Xiangding, who was in tears, and Master Karaki, who was standing in the middle of the hall and laughing, their expressions changed again and again. They could not help but have some guesses in their hearts. Could it be that Zhuo Wen had really caused a huge disaster, and now even the family master was crying because of Master Karaki? However, with Zhuo Xiangding's explanation, Zhuo Baitian and the others also knew the whole story. They suddenly felt a lot more relieved. However, the way they looked at Zhuo Wen had changed. It was no longer the way an elder would look at a junior. Instead, it was as if they were looking at a peer. They had become a lot more cautious. They did not expect Zhuo Wen to have the potential to become an Arcana Master. In the Heavenly Armor continent, Arcana Masters were the symbol of mystery, nobility, and wealth. As long as there was an Arcana Master in a family, the family was destined to rise. After staying in the family hall for a while, Master Karaki casually took out a jade slip and a jade tag from his Cosmos bag and said lazily, "Kid, this jade slip contains the entry-level Arcanist cultivation method. You just need to send your spiritual power into the jade slip and you will know the content. And this jade tag is this old man's personal token. With this jade tag, you can freely enter any area of the trading center. Of course, this old man gave you this jade tag to make it more convenient for you to find me in the future. This old man lives in the treasure pavilion. When you have successfully cultivated the entry-level Arcanist cultivation method, come to this old man. At that time, this old man will give you the next cultivation method. However, this entry-level Arcanist cultivation method is not that easy to cultivate. Based on this old man's experience, you will need at least half a year to barely reach the entry level. Come to me again after half a year." After Master Karaki reminded Zhuo Wen of some important matters, he left the Zhuo family. As soon as Master Karaki left, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly became a lot more relaxed. Zhuo Baitian and the elders of the family also became very enthusiastic about Zhuo Wen. After casually exchanging a few words, Zhuo Wen left the hall first. Looking at the gradually fading figure, Zhuo Baitian's face was slightly excited as he looked at Zhuo Xiangding and said, "It seems that our Ryuka is really going to rise. Zhuo Wen not only has a 9th-grade dragon soul, but also has the potential to become an Arcanist. It seems that our Ryuka will be able to restore our former glory soon. This kid really has the potential to lead our Ryuka back to our former glory. But now, you all need to be careful. Recently, the Blue Dragon Hall has been moving more and more frequently. Although our place is very remote, you still need to be careful. Also, you must not leak the fact that Zhuo Wen has a dragon soul. If anyone dares to leak it out, then don't blame this old man for being ruthless." Zhuo Xiangding's cold gaze swept across the elders present. Under Zhuo Xiangding's cold gaze, the elders present hurriedly nodded their heads in agreement. 3 days had passed since the commotion at the bazaar. The news that Grandmaster Karaki had personally accepted a disciple had spread like wildfire throughout Rattan Armor City. Many people who had personally witnessed the commotion today vividly described the scene back then. With this kind of spreading, Zhuo Wen's great name was known by everyone in Rattan Armor City. Everyone knew that Rattan Armor City would soon have a second Arcanist. Rattan Armor City was considered an insignificant small city in the Qing Xian Empire, but for such a small city to have 2 Arcanists, it was a matter of pride for the citizens of the city. Compared to the crazy commotion outside, the main character of this incident, Zhuo Wen, was much more leisurely. For the past 3 days, Zhuo Wen had been cooped up in the training room to recuperate. 3 days ago, he had experienced many big battles. Whether it was Lu Yuan, the hemp-robed old man, or Wang Meng, they were all difficult opponents. Especially the battle with the hemp-robed old man. If it wasn't for Xiao Hei's help, Zhuo Wen would have been in real danger. And after experiencing so many battles, Zhuo Wen naturally had many internal injuries. However, after 3 days of recuperation, Zhuowen's internal injuries had basically healed. Brat, you're really fearless. 3 days ago, you fought with the old man in linen clothes, and you've already suffered serious injuries. Yet, you still insisted on going to the trade fair to help your clansmen. That day, after your clash with Wang Meng, you were already an arrow at the end of its flight. If Wang Meng's final attack hadn't been blocked by the old man Sangmu, you would have ended up in a terrible state. Xiao Hei came out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows with a whoosh. Her little paws were placed on her hips as she spoke with a complicated expression. After all, they are my people. Since they have already acknowledged me as the strongest of their younger generation, then I have to bear the responsibility of protecting them. Shouldn't the strong protect the weak? Furthermore, they are of the same bloodline as me. Do you think that I would turn a blind eye to them? Zhuowen shrugged as he spoke with a grin. If it was a situation of certain death, would you have stood up for your people? Xiao Hei's tone was slightly fluctuating. People can't live without faith. If they don't have faith, then living is as meaningless as death. And my faith is naturally to protect those I am supposed to protect. Even if it is a matter of life and death, I will still uphold my faith. Zhuowen looked straight at Xiao Hei as he spoke indifferently. Humans are really strange creatures. Even though they know that they will die, they still seek death. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. Brat, you must have gained quite a lot that day. Take it out and let me have a look. Xiao Hei's eyes darted around as she spoke. After Xiao Hei's reminder, Zhuowen also recalled that he had indeed gained quite a number of Qinkuan bags that day. Thus, he casually took out 3 Qinkuan bags from his robes. These 3 Qinkuan bags belonged to Lu Yuan, Wang Zheng and Wang Meng respectively. The first thing that Zhuowen opened was Wang Zheng's Qinkuan bag. However, to Zhuowen's disappointment, there was nothing valuable inside. There were only 2 Tier 1 elixirs and some yuan coins. The rest were just random items. Zhuowen cursed in his heart. Then, he slowly opened Wang Meng's Qinkuan bag. Zhuowen remembered that when he asked for the Qinkuan bag, Wang Meng's expression changed greatly. Perhaps there was something valuable inside. After rummaging through Wang Meng's Qinkuan bag, a bamboo scroll immediately attracted his attention. Picking it up, Zhuowen's face immediately revealed a joyful expression. Low Earth Tier Armor Skill 9 Overlapping Wave Palm. No wonder Wang Meng's expression was so ugly. So there was such an Earth Tier armor skill hidden in the Qinkuan bag. I wonder if Wang Meng will go crazy with anger when he returns. Xiao Hei also saw the armor skill in Zhuowen's hands. She could not help but shake her head as she laughed. What a lucky guy. He could get an Earth Tier armor skill just by casually extorting. In Wang Meng's Qinkuan bag, other than the 9 overlapping wave palm, which was more valuable, the other items were not worth mentioning. Later on, Zhuowen rummaged through Lu Yuan's Qinkuan bag. What surprised Zhuowen was that he actually found 2 stalks of Grade 3 spirit herbs in Lu Yuan's Qinkuan bag. Grade 3 spirit herbs and Earth Tier armor skill. These 2 items were already extremely precious in the eyes of ordinary people. If they were placed outside, it would be enough to make many people jealous and fight over them. 2 Ice Fiend Frost Pearls, 2 stalks of Grade 3 spirit herbs, and an Earth Tier armor skill. This time's harvest can be said to be quite bountiful. Zhuowen stretched his back and muttered to himself in a good mood. Misfortune may be a blessing in disguise. It seems that this saying is very true. Great rewards are indeed accompanied by risks. However, once the risks are overcome, the rewards will be unimaginable. Xiao Hei sat on Zhuowen's shoulder and shook her head as she spoke. Xiao Hei, how much do you know about the Arcana Master? Zhuowen tilted his head to look at Xiao Hei and suddenly asked. Arcana Master? This Dragon Lord has never heard of the Arcana Master. You must know that this profession did not exist 10,000 years ago. However, there were alchemists. However, alchemists were all wiped out during the catastrophe 10,000 years ago. This is also why no one in the Heavenly Armor continent recognizes the existence of pills. Catastrophe 10,000 years ago. What exactly is that catastrophe? Can you tell me about it? Zhuowen's eyes flashed. He had heard of the catastrophe from Zhuoxiangding. It seemed that 10,000 years ago, the last head of the Ryuka family had fallen because of that catastrophe. The Ryuka family had also slowly declined because of it. From then on, the Blue Dragon Hall had taken advantage of the situation to invade. Xiao Hei's eyes narrowed slightly as she said indifferently, "Brat, this thing is too far away from you. You will naturally know when you become stronger in the future." Looking at Xiao Hei's expression, Zhuowen knew that this fellow would definitely not say anything, so he could only give up. Chapter 66. A terrifying arcana master Old Man Sangmu once said that the contents of the jade slip can only be viewed with mental strength. Let's see if it works. As he spoke, Zhuowen immediately focused his mental strength on the jade slip. Although Zhuowen didn't understand mental strength at all, his mental strength had reached a high level after all. He had no problem using it in some basic ways. After about half an incense stick's worth of time, Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. There was a look of understanding in his eyes. The jade slip's introduction to arcana masters was quite detailed. To put it bluntly, the cultivation method of arcana masters was completely different from that of cultivators. Cultivators mainly cultivated their physical strength, while arcana masters mainly cultivated their mental strength. The jade slip even introduced that the mental strength of some high-level arcana masters was so terrifying that it could overturn mountains and overturn seas. The strength they displayed was much more terrifying than cultivators of the same level. Most importantly, arcana masters could refine crystals to create origin formations. Origin formations possessed incredible power. For example, the 10-directional meteor formation mentioned in the jade slip would cause countless meteors to fall from a radius of 100 kilometers. Its power was enough to shake the heavens and earth and cause the sun and moon to dim in comparison. In the past, when the Qing Xian Empire was at war with other empires, they had invited several powerful arcana masters to set up the 10-directional meteor formation. In the end, nearly 100,000 enemy soldiers were annihilated by the 10-directional meteor formation. Even two of the enemy's ultimate Emperor realm cultivators were killed. Annihilating 100,000 elite soldiers, and even ultimate Emperor realm cultivators, was enough to show just how powerful an arcana master's origin formation was. Apart from the 10-directional meteor formation, the jade slip also introduced many powerful origin formations. For example, the 9 Underworlds blood formation could affect one's mind and was a first-rate illusory formation. The green iron tortoise formation was indestructible and was an extremely powerful defensive formation. This was also one of the reasons why arcanists had such a high status in the Qing Xian Empire and even the entire continent. Because of the existence of the origin formation, a high-level arcanist could fight against thousands of soldiers and horses. In war, arcanists were much more useful than powerful warriors. However, the conditions for creating an origin array were quite harsh. An arcana master had to have at least a third-grade arcana master in order to have the qualifications to create an origin array. For a rookie like Zhuowen, becoming a third-grade arcana master was still a long way off. So arcana masters are this powerful. No wonder arcana masters have such a high status on the continent. After reading the introduction, Zhuowen couldn't help but click his tongue. In the past, he didn't think that arcanists were that powerful. He only thought that arcanists were very rich. Now that he had a better understanding, he realized how terrifying arcanists were. The first half of the jade slip introduced the various achievements of arcanists, while the second half described the cultivation methods of arcanists. The classification of arcanists was similar to that of warriors. There were also 10 grades, from the 1st grade to the 10th grade. Arcanists of the corresponding grade would naturally be able to create origin crystals of the corresponding grade. Master Kuraki was a 3rd-grade arcanist. His strength was comparable to a warrior of the Zhao Emperor realm. In fact, he was much stronger than the average warrior of the Zhao Emperor realm. The cultivation methods given in the jade slip were divided into 3 stages: enlightenment, perspiration, and spirit focus. After cultivating to the spirit focus stage, one would have the qualifications to become a first-grade arcanist. Old man Songmu said that even with my talent, it would take me half a year to learn this basic technique. It seems that the cultivation of arcana masters really isn't that simple, Zhuowen muttered to himself. Arcanists are quite skilled. They actually specialize in tempering their mental strength. Moreover, the cultivation method in the Jade Slip seems to be similar to the cultivation methods of alchemists from 10,000 years ago. Xiao He, who was sitting on Zhuowen's shoulder, rubbed her chin with her little paw as she spoke with a deep gaze. Oh! Alchemists also specialize in mental strength? Zhuowen asked as he looked at Xiao He with some surprise. Alchemists have to control the heat during the process of refining pills. Controlling the heat naturally requires a strong mental strength. After all, no one is as lucky as you to obtain a top-grade medicinal cauldron like the Supreme Dragon Cauldron. You should know that the Supreme Dragon Cauldron itself is a top-grade alchemist. Its owner only needs to gather the ingredients to refine pills. Xiao He glanced at Zhuowen with a sour look in her eyes as she spoke. Zhuowen could only laugh dryly as he looked at Xiao He's bitter eyes. Since there are similarities, perhaps this Dragon Lord can be of some help. Moreover, the cultivation method that old man gave you is too low-level and inefficient. No wonder you're only a third-grade arcanist at such an old age. Zhuowen rolled his eyes. Kuraki was a third-grade arcanist, after all. He could be considered one of the top figures in Vine Armor City. Yet, Xiao He had belittled him as if he was worthless. Xiao He ignored Zhuowen's roll of eyes. Instead, she waved her little paw and sent a message into Zhuowen's mind. The Godly Spirit Technique is this Dragon Lord's collection of mental strength training methods. Even 10,000 years ago, it was considered a top-grade technique. You have to cherish it. Zhuowen did not expect Xiao He to suddenly send a message into his mind. Originally, he wanted to resist, but Xiao He's words caused him to completely let down his guard. Immediately, he closed his eyes and began to silently study the Godly Spirit Technique that appeared in his mind. As Zhuowen slowly comprehended the Godly Spirit Technique in his mind, the Naiwen Palace between his eyebrows gradually changed. Threads of mental strength gradually spread out in all directions like a spider web. Sensing the special changes in Zhuowen's Naiwen Palace, Xiao He narrowed her eyes and muttered to herself, "This kid's perception is not bad. He actually entered the zone so quickly. This technique is good stuff. Kid, don't waste it." Time passed by minute. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the ground like an old monk in meditation. However, threads of mental strength continued to spread out from his Naiwen Palace. Under this constant accumulation, the entire room was filled with Zhuowen's mental strength. With a crisp cracking sound, the countless amounts of mental strength in the room suddenly retreated into Zhuowen's Naiwen Palace like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Then, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. A trace of light shot out from his eyes. Zhuowen suddenly stared at a tea table not far away. Then, the tea table actually shook a few times and miraculously floated up. Zhuowen's mind moved, and the tea table actually obediently circled around Zhuowen. Is this the miraculous use of mental strength? It is indeed very miraculous. I can actually take things out of thin air as if it is my arm. Looking at the tea table that was circling around him, Zhuowen's face blossomed into a joyful smile. Kid, not bad. You actually succeeded in awakening. I think that with the help of the Godly Spirit Technique, your mental strength should be able to reach that spirit focus level within 2 months. I wonder what kind of surprised expression that old man will have when you go and look for him 2 months later. Xiao He chuckled a little complacently. Then, she changed the topic and said, however, don't be too proud of yourself. Compared to those high-level arcanists who can move mountains and split rocks, you are at most a child's play. Hee, I naturally understand what you are saying. However, the Godly Spirit Technique is really miraculous. When I circulated it, the mental strength in my Naiwen Palace actually increased by several times. This kind of terrifying growth rate is something that I have never seen before in my life. Of course. How can something given by this dragon lord be bad? However, while you are cultivating your mental strength, you can't neglect your own cultivation. You should know that there is only a month left until the battle at the market. That day, Wang Meng looked at you with an unfriendly gaze. I'm afraid that fellow won't let you off so easily in half a year. When Zhuowen heard this, his eyes immediately narrowed. He grinned and said, I naturally know this. Although arcanists are very powerful, they are still just starting out. Since the battle at the market is approaching, I naturally won't put the cart before the horse and spend all my time on mental strength. It's good that you know. Right now, you have a lot of third-grade elixirs on you. If you use the Supreme Dragon Cauldron to convert them into elixirs, the amount will be considerable. With these elixirs, your cultivation should be able to increase in a short period of time. Xiao He stroked her chin and said faintly. Zhuowen nodded and said with a cold smile, right now, I have quite a lot of elixirs on me. I believe that in half a year, even if my cultivation can't surpass Wang Meng's, it won't be too far away. At that time, I will let Wang Meng know how unwise it is to offend me, Zhuowen. After saying this, Zhuowen took out a rich elixir from his Qinquan bag and threw it into his mouth without hesitation. Then, he sat down cross-legged and silently refined the rich elixir in the elixir. Time flew by, and 2 months had passed in a flash. In a deep courtyard in the hidden dragon pavilion, 2 figures were intertwined with each other like afterimages. As these 2 figures continued to intertwine, the yuan power fluctuations were like stormy waves that constantly spread to the surroundings. Boom! The 2 figures clashed once again. Then, a slightly thin figure continuously retreated 7 or 8 steps with whooshing sounds, while the other robust figure stood in place like a boulder. As expected of a corporeal yang expert. Even if I use my full strength, I still can't break through the defense on your body. Zhuowen shook his head helplessly as he looked at the middle-aged man not far away and spoke with a sour tone. The middle-aged man was naturally Zhuowen's uncle, Zhuo Baitian. Zhuo Baitian laughed and said, Kid, don't be greedy. Uncle still remembers that 2 months ago, your cultivation was only at the early stage of the soul transformation realm. Now, you have already reached the peak of the soul transformation realm. This speed is really terrifying. Zhuowen shook his head and smiled non-committally. Only he knew the real reason for his rapid cultivation progress. Without the accumulation of elixirs, even if Zhuowen's talent was strong, it would be impossible for his cultivation to progress so quickly. Of course, Zhuowen naturally wouldn't say this to Zhuo Baitian. Zhuowen, there are only 4 months left until the market battle. This time, you can be considered our Zhuo family's trump card. You should know that our Zhuo family has been at the bottom of the rankings for several years. If we lose this time, I'm afraid our Zhuo family will really suffer a loss. Zhuo Baitian patted Zhuowen's shoulder and said bitterly. Uncle, don't worry. In the market battle, I will definitely let our Zhuo family reach the top again. Zhuowen nodded and said with bright eyes. Zhuo Baitian looked at Zhuowen's bright eyes and nodded with gratification. He chatted with Zhuowen for a while more before leaving the hidden dragon pavilion. Chapter 67. Double breakthrough. The night was like a black dragon that shrouded the entire land. Layers of thick black fog were rolling in the sky, giving off a sinister feeling. In the hidden dragon pavilion, a handsome young man was sitting cross-legged. His eyes were flickering with light. Kid, now that your cultivation has reached the peak of the soul transformation stage, it's time to attack the nirvana stage. A shadow emerged from the young man's forehead and sat on the young man's shoulder. The shadow was Xiao He, who looked like a black dog. Yes. However, advancing to the nirvana stage has some risks. It is said that the nirvana heart fire will appear during the advancement process. If it is not handled properly, it is very likely that the nirvana heart fire will cause chi deviation. Zhuowen's expression was grave. Obviously, he was a little afraid of the nirvana heart fire. The nirvana heart fire is just a small matter. This is only the first tribulation when a cultivator starts cultivating. In the future, when your cultivation reaches a high level, the tribulation brought about by the breakthrough will be earth-shattering. Don't you have the Ice Fiend Pearl? That is the best thing to restrain the Nirvana Heart Fire. When the time comes, place the Ice Fiend Pearl beside you. The Nirvana Heart Fire will naturally dissipate. Xiao He curled his lips. Obviously, he was disdainful of Zhuowen's worries. The Ice Fiend Pearl actually has such an effect? Zhuowen was stunned. He immediately took out the Ice Fiend Pearl from his Qianquan bag. Curiosity surged in his eyes. Brat, don't look anymore. Just keep the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl by your side. With the 10,000-year profound ice's cold chi, the Nirvana flame won't be able to do much. Looking at the impatient expression on Xiao Hei's face, Zhuowen curled his lips. He immediately placed the Ice Fiend Pearl beside his feet and took out 4 fiery red elixirs from his Qianquan bag. These 4 fiery red elixirs were naturally the Phoenix Sun elixirs that Zhuowen had refined from a Grade 3 elixir, the Phoenix Sun Flower. A Grade 3 elixir contained surging yuan power, and the yuan power required to break through to the Nirvana stage was naturally extremely terrifying. Therefore, a Grade 3 elixir was the most suitable choice at this moment. Looking at the 4 elixir pills in his hand, Zhuowen's eyes focused. Soon after, the yuan power in his body suddenly erupted and enveloped the 4 elixir pills. With a cheat sound, the 4 elixir pills instantly turned into a pool of golden liquid under the pressure of the yuan power. Under the guidance of the yuan power, the liquid entered Zhuowen's body with a so sound. As the liquid entered his body, Zhuowen also sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. He began to concentrate on refining the surging medicinal power within the pill so that he could successfully break through in one go. Creak! Creak! Following the flow of time, numerous strange muffled sounds were emitted from within Zhuowen's body. At the same time, threads of white smoke also curled and rose from the top of his head. A red glow was vaguely visible on Zhuowen's face, appearing unusually strange. Around the time for an incense stick to burn, the red glow on Zhuowen's face suddenly soared. Soon after, the temperature on the surface of Zhuowen's body actually rose rapidly. A partially visible flame illusionary figure actually slowly emerged from within Zhuowen's body. Puff! The instant this flame illusionary figure appeared, Zhuowen's face immediately became distorted. Immediately, fresh cherry red blood was spat out from his mouth. Following this mouthful of blood being spat out by Zhuowen, the flame illusionary figure actually trembled a little. It actually suddenly struggled out from within Zhuowen's body. Xiao Hei's face immediately paled when this flame appeared outside of Zhuowen's body. Nirvana Demon Flame? Why did such a flame emerge from within this little fellow's body? This flame was extremely strange. Its entire body was pitch black. Moreover, its outer appearance was actually similar to a skull. Its pair of pitch-black hole-like eyes appeared unexpectedly terrifying. One could see that this strange flame actually emitted a strange whistling sound the moment it appeared. Immediately, it laughed in a strange manner as it opened its mouth and suddenly flew towards Zhuowen. From the looks of it, it seemed as though it wanted to swallow Zhuowen alive. Just how great of a sin does this little fellow have? He is actually able to summon such a troublesome thing like the Nirvana Demon Flame when he is breaking through. Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with a grave expression. Immediately, she waved her small claws and the ice demon bead placed beside Zhuowen immediately floated up. After which, waves of icy blue cold air agglomerated into a blue ice wall in front of Zhuowen. Hiss hiss. The Nirvana Demon Flame was caught off guard. It immediately collided with the ice wall and let out a strange cry as though it was in pain. Damn it, this thing is really too dangerous. I must first imprison it before doing anything else. Xiao Hei cursed while she swiftly activated the extremely cold air within the ice demon bead to surround the Nirvana Demon Flame. Clearly, the Nirvana Demon Flame was extremely afraid of the cold air of the ice demon bead. However, the Nirvana Demon Flame immediately let out a whistle when it saw that the cold air was about to imprison it. Its face had become strangely ferocious. Hiss hiss. One could see an endless amount of black-colored flames erupting from the demon flame. These black flames transformed into a countless number of large mouths that began to nibble at the icy blue cold air. Hiss hiss. One could see thick white smoke being formed between the two. During this period of time, the sharp miserable cries of the Nirvana demon flame were repeatedly emitted. The Nirvana demon flame within the cold air was also continuously shrinking. Its originally face-sized body had now turned into the size of a palm. Although the Nirvana demon flame was continuously shrinking, the 10,000-year mysterious ice-cold air had also become extremely dim under its erosion. Finally, one could hear a cracking sound. The cold air was actually completely devoured by the large mouth that was formed by the demon flame. Damn it, this thing is indeed a glutton. Even the 10,000-year mysterious ice-cold air that is the most effective against flames was actually devoured by this fellow. Xiao Hei's expression immediately became much uglier when he saw the Nirvana demon flame that had escaped. His mouth repeatedly cursed. The Nirvana demon flame had just escaped when its black hole eyes immediately locked onto the cursing Xiao Hei a short distance away. It was also aware that Xiao Hei in front of it was the main culprit who had imprisoned it. Hiss hiss. The Nirvana demon flame whistled. Immediately, it rushed toward Xiao Hei without any regard for its own safety. It opened its large mouth with the intention of swallowing Xiao Hei. You actually dare to target this dragon master? I think that you are seeking death. Humph. Xiao Hei's expression also became a little cold when he saw the Nirvana demon flame rushing over. One could see his small claw once again. A dark black light shot out from his claw. After which, it transformed into a black square prison that suddenly covered the Nirvana demon flame within it. The Nirvana demon flame did not possess any intelligence. It actually opened its large mouth with the intention of swallowing the dark black prison when it saw it flying over. However, it was ultimately trapped within the dark black prison. Hiss 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 hiss. The Nirvana demon flame within the black prison attempted to escape. However, regardless of how it bit, the black prison was completely undamaged. Let's temporarily trap this thing first. I should first ask Zhuowen before making a decision. Xiao Hei's eyes flickered for a moment. Immediately, his gaze was quite grave as he looked at the figure seated in front of him. The night quietly passed by in this manner. When a trace of white appeared in the sky, Yuan power suddenly overflowed from the body of the figure seated cross-legged in the training room. Soon after, wild and violent ripples blew in all directions like a hurricane. Is he about to make a breakthrough? Xiao Hei, who was suspended in the air, suddenly opened his eyes at this moment. His eyes were somewhat bright as he looked at the figure. An intense golden light suddenly exploded from the figure. Then, a thin golden film gradually appeared on the surface of his body. This was the Nirvana golden robe. It was the symbol of the Nirvana stage. With this layer of golden film, the defensive power of a Nirvana stage martial artist could almost double. This figure also slowly opened his eyes after the golden film gradually disappeared. A golden light flashed across his eyes. However, Zhuowen did not have any intention of getting up. Instead, his right hand suddenly pressed on his forehead. Immediately, waves of powerful mental energy suddenly surged out from his Naiwan palace. Could it be that this brat wants to make use of the breakthrough to increase his mental energy? A month ago, this brat's mental energy also entered the peri-celestial stage. Now, I'm afraid that he is about to break through to the divine condensation stage. Looks like his ambition is not small. Looking at Zhuowen, who still had no intention of getting up, Xiao Hei's eyes narrowed slightly. A trace of a strange arc spread from the corner of his mouth. Threads of powerful mental energy were like a huge net that enveloped the entire room. Xiao Hei could sense that this huge net-like mental energy seemed to be slowly becoming denser. Some of the furniture in the room, such as tables and chairs, began to slowly float under the effect of this mental energy. Rumble. With a loud explosion, a powerful force suddenly erupted from this mental energy. Subsequently, the objects that were suspended in mid-air were actually instantly turned into dust under this force. At the same time, the mental energy in the room was like the receding tide. Half of it retreated back into Zhuowen's Naiwen palace. Have you successfully broken through? Xiao He sized up Zhuowen and asked with a slight fluctuation. Zhuowen once again opened his eyes after his voice sounded. After which, he suddenly flipped his body and stood up. His spine was straight and a surging ripple suddenly erupted from within his body. Clearly, his mental energy had also successfully broken through to the divine condensation stage. Xiao He, thank you very much. Zhuowen turned his head and spoke with a trace of gratitude in his eyes. Although he had basically shut his eyes and trained last night, he was clearly aware of everything that had happened outside. He knew that if it was not for Xiao He's help, it was likely that the frightening Nirvana demon flame would have directly swallowed him. It is nothing. Xiao He lazily waved his hand. Immediately, he waved his hand and pulled the black prison to his side before continuing, how do you plan to deal with this thing? You should know that the Nirvana demon flame is an extremely evil flame. If you do not have any special methods, it is extremely difficult to kill this thing. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with fear as he looked at the black skull flame that was grimacing and struggling repeatedly in the prison. Last night, he had sensed that this demon flame was even able to swallow the 10,000-year-old mysterious ice-cold aura. This thing seemed to be able to swallow whatever it saw. It was extremely frightening. After musing for a moment, Zhuowen spoke with some hesitation, is it possible to subdue this thing? If I am able to subdue this Nirvana demon flame, it might become an extremely powerful trump card.